And we are live with the Malifaux November 2022 errata. November. What month is it, guys?
I thought it was February.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's when these things normally drop, right? So
Just a few weeks late.
when you think of it like that, we're actually like 2 months early.
So
mind games.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I'm obviously Bad Haku, and with me I have my good friend Brian.
Yo,
Are you schemes or are you strats? I never remember.
I believe I am schemes because Kyle Stones is the one that sounds cool.
So we have Brian Schemes here from the Schemes and Stone podcast, as well as our good friend Goodman.
Greetings.
Who you probably hear every now and then on my channel, and is mostly known for having once taken care of most of the Vassal module changes in the recent years.
Yeah, looking really good.
And with that being said, we're just going to step right into the errata. We do have the full release book. As I said, I will be trying to get to that when it releases on the app. Kind of the reason I'm doing the errata changes, because this is actually in the app at the moment. But I'm going to talk about some of the model changes and rules changes in regards to those models, even though I haven't really discussed them yet. So at least when I do get that video out, these two videos should work together. And I don't think there's much interplay between the two, but there is definitely actually a little bit. So with that, we're going to get right into it, and we're just going to try to breeze through this a little faster than normal, just because I think most of us were expecting a lot of these changes.
Yeah.
Although I am going to start off with the change I actually think is most surprising to me. Arcanist Mayfang change. Sealcraft action requires moving 3 markers instead of 2. Heated iron is now the aura. You guys can read this stuff. Largely, this just tampered down her a little bit, as well as, making heated iron terrible.
Well, I mean, okay. Heated iron's still fine because you're still like always dropping a scrap every activation, right? That's like one of like Cons or Foundry's whole like shticks is they end their activation, they drop a scheme marker, right? Or a scrap marker, correct?
Yeah.
So it's limited, but like you're still reliably gonna get damage off when damage matters. Now you just don't get it for like existing, which seems fair. Like this is more in line with Parker's scheme marker damage thing, which is fair.
I mean,
it's fine.
You're not wrong. It is fair. It's just needing. I think the big thing is obviously going to be needing that line of sight.
Yeah. But hey, you get to control the scrap marker dropping instead of in Parker, they control the scheme marker. So at least like you actually make sure they get the damage.
Yeah. This is a pretty large hit though to Mayfang, who I don't feel like we've been seeing a lot of, although she's definitely been talked up a bunch. I think she got incidentally hit just because they're like, oh, she's really good. We know she's really good. She just hasn't been seeing a lot of play because we have these other more bonkers masters that...
Right. I think she was a product of, well, originally Hoffman. Hoffman was the obvious take of just like, oh, this is clearly super good. So I'm just going to run Hoffman. Or you do the Mayfang Hoffman thing. That's different. That's somewhat different. And then Damien came out, and then it's like, well, Mayfang is really good. Also, all of these other Arcanist people are really good, but why would I want to try hard in the game when I can play Damien instead? So
yeah.
So this is more than anything, this feels like future-proofing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Sealcraft requiring 3 markers doesn't really matter too much. It's obviously more annoying, but whatever.
Right. But it puts a little more effort into it, and summoning probably shouldn't just be like a negligible effort, right? So and Metal Game are like good models, especially as summons. So it seems fair.
Yeah, it definitely seems fair. And 10 Thunders, you obviously had Yanlo overshadowing her and Yoko too, where to the point where you didn't really want to play her, especially because you wanted the Arcanist upgrades and stuff. So she was always a little awkward in 10 Thunders.
Yeah.
But we're going to move on to Bayou now, the faction I try to pretend doesn't exist, and we're going to move on to Ophelia. Her changes are just pretty tampered down. Holies for me got restricted to kin, I think is the big one.
Well, I would argue it's not so much the kin restriction, it's the they don't get bigger they are is the big one. Because then you don't get a ton of like stat 7, like models that clearly aren't intended to have stat 7 suddenly just getting stat 7 good attacks. And like I played against her a ton, and granted, or not a ton, but like early on in Burns, I had a number of games against her. I hit her a lot. And I'd say like half the games, the upgrade shtick didn't really like come up a ton. But when it did, it was brutal when a bunch of like mook models just started like screwing me because they like did all this stuff. So that just like feels fair.
Yeah, I think the only reason I say like the kin thing is relevant is because for a big while is a big thing to just hire a couple really cheap models and have like the totems just hand them hand the totems things.
Right. Yeah.
And that was super annoying, super annoying. Mm-hmm. And it's glad that that's gone. Now you actually have to take kin at AP to do it, and then you're not having as many upgrades out. Obviously, you're right. Ignoring bigger they are is really nice, but
yeah.
I think that's mostly it for her. She was mostly just, a little too strong, and they just tampered her down a bit.
The other one, the raiding operation, because it was universal, I think, originally, instead of they changed it to 12-inch range. So I want to say it was a larger range before, and now there's an increasing cost, so you don't just get to like do a ton of things for free, which is also good.
I do almost wish I didn't upgrade my app, so these ones I don't quite have off the top of my head, I would be able to tell you exactly what they used to do. Yeah. But I agree. I think is there can I preview? No. I was wondering if there was any way to see pre-errata cards. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was like infinite range, and you could do it to everybody.
I don't think there was a TN or anything. It just like do it and discard your upgrades, and then do a bunch of really good things, and any of them are good for you. So just do the thing that works best, and is good. But
yeah, and obviously, give me that back. No longer giving focus is also just nice.
Yeah, seems fair.
Now we're going to get a bit more into the heavier hit model, which
crunchy.
What?
The crunchy changes.
Okay, the crunchy changes. Sure, we'll go with that.
I don't know, like it's a wall of changes for Brewmaster. Like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, you want to take this over?
Oh God. Yeah, I mean I played against him. So they limited how much poison shenanigans he's gonna do. And that probably was needed, because before you could just do an insane amount of poison shenanigans with it.
Ping damage. They nerfed they massively nerfed the ping damage so that you can only do it. The model can only take once per activation, and very cleverly they included start phase as well, because they learned I think from the Deva.
Yeah. And then the Tipsy Slide. It's only 3 models now, and not just like universal or something before.
Well, yeah, it's also Aura 8.
Right. It's limited now, and you actually have to like move around to do it. Another round just got, I don't actually remember what another round was. Because I know that was like, I don't think that was like the big issue with that one.
I think the big change with it was that you could move them more than once per turn. So you would pulse out multiple.
Oh, sure.
God, if I'm wrong on that one, I'm going to look so stupid, but I hate Brewmaster. Honestly, as much slack as we gave Brewmaster when he first came out, he was really broken until they made the poison changes. But after that, I really did feel like every time I played against it, especially with like the new other top tier crews and Damien and whatever. I think Landon even noticed it with Yoko a lot. Is it just folds? Like you just kill a couple key models and the whole crew just folds.
If you were able to get that bloody nose punch in there, it folded. But then if you didn't, then you had a bad day. Granted, I've only played against like non-nerfed Brew, like the original nerf to the poison changes Brewmaster. I've never played him since. But like before the poison changes, where it was capped at the 5, he was like god tier because I got 70 inches of free movement in the first 2 turns of the game. How am I supposed to like handle that?
Yeah, it literally models just moved across the map here. If there was an open lane and you're just like, oh, okay, cool.
I remember playing a game and I resigned at like end of turn 3, but we had been keeping track. And at the end of turn 3, my opponent had generated between the 2 like crews, because he was moving my own models. Jim had generated like 200 something inches of movement, which is insane. But to help curb that, even additionally, the open gourd doesn't make the whiskey golem hazardous into the next round of the game, which just seems like something that would have happened because like persistent effects that last between turns feels like something that probably should just not be a thing. Though they introduced it with that new Tiri model, which is kind of cool. But that she has to take damage to do, so it seems a little fairer.
Yeah.
But this will make it harder. Like you have to go with Brewmaster early if you want to do like, I get 70 poison on all of my minions and stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I really like the changes, I think. I except for the fact that I don't think Brew is that great anymore, and I don't think you'd be seeing a lot of plays. So the nerfs, well, I guess her now, aren't that great. Yeah, weren't that needed, I guess I'd say.
Right. They weren't necessarily needed on like that competitive scale, but I think it was like that MPE idea. And this is something I'll probably talk about the deeper we go. A lot of these changes felt like competitive gameplay balance related, but also focused on this makes people feel bad when they play against it. Let's try to tamper that down. Yeah. And this seems like that was the primary focus.
I agree. I think the negative play experience of ping damage, as we talked about how broken it is, and I absolutely adore it for how amazing it is. It's just really unfortunate for a lot of people. They don't feel like they're playing the game. They're watching you play the game. And Brewmaster was like a defining example of that. If you weren't playing competitive lists against her, then your whole crew would get pinged off the board pretty easily. So I agree. I think this was mostly for more casual experience, and I don't think it hurts her that much. You just have to play slightly differently now.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the Maxine the Maniacal changes. I am a big fan of these changes because Maxine was just an annoying model in my opinion. So one of the big changes that is completely irrelevant is that EVS can choose to fail is removed from text. Spoiler alert, the reason why is that you can now always choose to fail simple duels generated by friendly models. Therefore, it is redundant text. It's not a nerf, it's just getting rid of redundant text.
It's cleaning, which is important.
The TN got adjusted to 13. I don't know if that went up or down, to be honest, because using it against enemies was never the purpose.
The point, yes.
So I don't know if that TN went up or down.
I assume.
Oh, right. I'm not. It's the TN, not even the resist. Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I think it went up. I think it was a 6 before. Now it's a 7.
Yeah. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
So it's a little harder to get off. You're a crew that draws almost infinite amount of cards. You're fine.
Yeah.
Or it became cheaper, and I'm an idiot, and it was an 8 before. There's no way it was an 8 before. It was a 6.
Either way, it's a change. I don't know if it matters. Yes. The big ones, though, I think, not knowing a ton about Maniacal just in general, for like I hadn't faced her. The the explorers I faced against just dropped Nexus against me constantly. It was super fun. The heal change, a model can't benefit from Breach Burt multiple times in an activation. So
It's massive.
You can't just heal the same model 7 times when she does the calculate the possibilities.
Yeah.
Which seems fair. Like that feels like a fair change, that you don't just get to like heal a metric fuck ton. Damn, I swear that's gonna lose your monetization. I'm sorry, buddy.
Don't have it. Yeah, no, it's a really massive change. A lot of the crew, it was literally built around the idea that you just have like this unstoppable bubble, and a huge part of that is the fact that you could just heal an obscene amount every single activation. Most of the time, it's 1 heal per activation, but not always.
But yeah, like if
definitely
the
not on
cards
her
are just
turn.
There,
yeah.
They gave the etheric tearing gives out staggered. I don't know what it was before.
Injured.
Was it? That was it? Okay.
Yeah.
It says I'm blind. I can read, I swear.
Etheric Tear gives stagger instead of injured now. They changed it against move. So this is a nice little sideways nerf. I definitely think injured is the more relevant of the two stats.
Right.
Or conditions, I guess. 6 versus 5 doesn't matter nearly as much when you're going to move. I mean, I guess there really were like no defense 7, so you were basically always able to hit. But there's a good amount of move 6s, so that is actually decently annoying.
Yeah, but you just use the willpower attack to give the staggered, and then you're... Oh no!
That attack is not a willpower attack anymore. Or I guess you're right. You have the stat 6 split across worlds, so just give staggered, sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you just stagger them in advance, and then they can't heal, which is like that's a good ability. I'm a fan of staggered. Like I play Jackdaw. I like the mechanical concept behind staggered. I really like how that all works. So, I'm not a fan of like seeing it in my opponent's crews, but it as like an idea I think is good, and it makes sense with like kind of the narrative. Like you're like she's revealing revelations, and you get shocked, and you're staggered. Like it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a nice side nerf for Maxine. They buffed her when they allowed everybody to fail friendly made simple duels.
Right.
Which will mean her bonus action now is guaranteed to go off to everybody in Explorers, not just EVS.
Yeah.
And they basically just made her a target move crew now, which is pretty nice. The huge downside is one of her main benefits of attacking willpower with her attack was with her henchmen, who gave negative to resist to willpower duels. So that's no longer a problem. That's a huge hit. I don't know how well she'll survive those changes.
Did Etheric Tear attack willpower?
It was willpower or defense, I believe. You could actually choose.
So
I could be wrong on that one.
Either that is true, but then they never put that in the document, because that's not referenced in the document.
They just it's now resisted by move. That's all they changed.
I can read.
It never targeted move before. It targeted willpower, and you would get people at negatives using is it? Errata? No, it's not Errata. No, it's her other one.
The other, I don't know these models well enough.
No, I was right. It's Errata.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. All right, so
it's very nice that they cleaned that up, because as we've noticed, all the new shockwaves have been getting the relent ability anyway. So now it's a really nice way of kind of cleaning up all the old ones that didn't. Looking at you, Rafkin.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think one of the real nice benefits of this is actually going to be Umbra, because Gibson's pulse out actively failing that was a legitimate issue. Now it's really easy to get distracted like 4 on your crew. So it's great.
Seems okay.
Yeah.
But now we'll move on to a master you will never see played again. Nexus. They really, really hate Nexus.
To be fair, it's actually, go ahead. I'll save my pithy comments for later.
Yeah. So Nexus now no longer gets his totems. You have to hire him. So it's basically a 4 Soulstone tax on the crew because you're going to want them. And so now the crew just tacked by full Soulstone. Burrow the Spine is now adjusted to no longer allow the stacking the effect, which was pretty much, I believe, just a rules question people brought up with when models had shielded. It would have to ping them like 5 times in order to actually inflict damage.
It's the rules question. It's just how they wrote the rule.
Yeah, it's how they wrote the rule.
Yes.
And people were willfully ignoring that, and now now you don't have to worry about that.
Were they ignoring it, or it says if you don't take the damage, it keeps applying, so it just means you could never dodge the damage.
True. Yeah, so, and now they fixed that by changing it to the Now you just it procs at the end of each activation instead of, when they get the parasite token.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it still reads Suffer 1.
Yeah, but there's text on there that says that only one of them can resolve the ability.
Yeah.
All 3 of them.
That's right. That's how they did it. It was each one pinged it until they actually took the damage.
Which makes sense, because just getting 3 damage for the token, it means you cannot block it. You will always take 1 damage. It's unless you have...
Yeah, you couldn't stone the damage is what
exactly.
was
unless you had 3 shielded or 2 shielded in a stone or whatever.
Yeah.
It's that's pretty brutal.
I actually legitimately, as how annoying that rule would be, I actually kind of wish it still worked, because we're going to get onto it. The rest of the crew sucks. So join us now requires discarding a parasite token for the killed model, which is fine. I don't think that's very relevant, especially because of how they changed Burrow the Spine to deal with damage. You can now kill them with the parasite token they get at the end of activation instead of in the middle of it. And therefore, you can actually get the trigger, because it doesn't happen. The damage no longer happens immediately. So if you were killing him with the ping, you would never get the eyes and ears model. Now you have a way to kill him with the ping and get the eyes and ear model, which is actually decently relevant. It's now just costing you that parasite token, which is probably fine, because you just applied it to them. But it does obviously mean multiple attacks are now slightly worse. What is the next big change? Secret mission triggers removed, so now you no longer have to worry about insignificant models being significant, which was very good. The Join the Hive stat in TN got adjusted to 6. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a 4 before, or was it a 5? But yeah, either way, it now costs a 6, which is, sure. I think this is actually probably the more relevant ability now. Who knows? The more relevant parts is that the Drain Life got a stat reduced by 1 and got a mask trigger put on. Wait, what the hell am I talking
built
about?
in Join Us.
Yeah, it's always been built in.
It was always.
It's just Drain Life got changed from 6 to 5, which is huge. Obviously, being stat 5 is just such a massive difference than stat 6, because you're no longer able to consistently get that first parasite token on somebody, which means your chain of parasite tokens is a little bit harder to get off, as well as the fact that they also changed to when you get to use parasite tokens, which is after you flip cards. Which is, very brutal.
Instead of
is that not on the Nexus thing? Before, it was before people cheated. Now it's after people cheated.
Well, yeah,
the other way around. It's now before.
Right, that's what I meant. After. Sorry, you couldn't. You could wait to see if they cheated a card or not. Now you cannot.
After their cheat,
they always had to cheat too higher. Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
And now
incredibly punishing.
Yeah.
And the stats 6 to 5, yes, that is a big change. It's going to be much harder to hit, especially henchman masters who often have willpower, or the willpower 6, whatever. That being said, you get 9 attempts to hit them. There's still 3 AP models you get 3 of. So now they can't just auto kill henchmen. Fine, you have to target the minions and the enforcers and the non-soulstone using models in an opponent's crew. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's still good because, sure, it's not as high quality impact actions, but what you do get is a ton of them. And you're going to nickel and dime things down to death, and when you do, you summon off of them. Done. Like, that's, like, it's not doom and gloom for Nexus.
Oh, no, it's totally doom and gloom. This crew is literally unplayable now. I'm calling it.
Will stalwartly disagree.
Their health is down to 6, and one of the more relevant things is playthings can only move themselves in 2 other models. The reason this is so relevant is because you're talking about getting 9 attacks. You're just not. They're not moving up the board that fast anymore. The range 6 is a huge problem for them. They don't have the extra Shambling Nest to pass off things, so they're down 4 Soul Stones. The best thing they've got going for them is that they still have Parasite tokens, which are only like quasi-relevant. I honestly am not sure I actually understand playing these over original Nexus now anymore.
Which is still a fine master.
Fine's a strong word. I think we'll see we know the new masters already. Explorers, I believe, actually got a really good new master, and I don't really think you're ever really going to see the next kids played again. But
okay,
maybe someone will surprise me.
I got you.
Onwards to the thing I can probably talk about the most. Charles Hoffman, Inventor, finally got the nerf everyone's been wanting. I've been a big proponent of very slightly nerfing him. That did not happen. So, what are the big changes? Well, the big changes, obviously the ones everyone's talking about, is his laser no longer really works.
It's just not as efficient or effective or as good.
Yeah, they put a gun on it. So that's already what I've been a big advocate for that for a while. I think that was the only real change he needed. But even though they put a gun on it, they also reduced the maximum damage, so you can only laser for 3. And the pylon markers have to be within range of the enemy, or the target, not yourself. And they put enemy only on Power Spike for some reason, because I guess they actually figured out correctly what I was kind of thinking, which is now you shoot your own guy to just pass out power tokens in Pulse 3.
Yeah.
So they stopped me from doing that, which I didn't feel like was good anyways, but was just like a decent thing you could do turn 1, and now you just don't have that option.
Well, it wasn't good originally, because you would be shooting your own guys for 4. Now, you're very reliably only going to be hitting your own guys for 1, so they had to prevent that from happening. Because
I guess.
I see why they did it now because of how they changed alternating current.
That's my point, though. They already nerfed him. I don't think that the fallback ability use of using him to get power tokens was that good anyways. So also removing that just seems like they really don't want you to play Hoffman too much anymore.
Yeah,
which I'll be frank, I actually understand. Because the new models they introduced in the Arc starter kit pretty much turned him into a monster.
I was gonna say this feels like Hoffman is a air quotes Arcanist model, right? He's a guild master. And Guild has a whole bench of pretty good options now. So this is guys, just do any of the 4 masters and titles that are actually pretty great for you that you could play, and it's fine. Versus Arcanist, this is we gave him past token generation and all kinds of things that would take him even better than he already is. We can't do that, so we can't change the starter sets because those can't get changed. So let's hurt him. Whereas the guild change is just you change some of his stuff, now you can play other really good things. And it's changing on the Arcanist side to prevent you can get 5 pass tokens or something really easily. I haven't done the math on it.
No, okay. It'd be very hard to get more than 2, I think.
Okay.
You get 1 guaranteed from the new guy, and then the minions, you need specifically a 6 of mask or better. So that's going to be...
Okay, so it's not super easy, but...
No. You're mostly getting 1, sometimes 2.
2, 1, 2 probably reliably.
Yeah,
ish.
a third is getting a lot harder. Any more than that, very unreliable.
But still, 2 pass tokens and with irreducible 4 laser going last, like that's, and then potentially going first, right? Like, you roll those forward, but depending on how you want to play it. Getting last first activation with Hoffman, that's ping, here, laser, dead.
Yeah, except for, honestly, it's just going to be better to do it with a double focus, triple power token, or quadruple, or 5 power token Peacekeeper with, min 5 your guy on a fast Hoff. They just changed which Hoff you're playing.
Yeah.
Other relevant things I'll mention before we move on. Security defense now needs a 5 instead of a 3. And arc nodes, they made it so that you don't get shielded from it, and you can't get a power token from both it and picking up scrap, which was kind of rare anyways, but now you just can't do it. So, Oh well.
The shielded is a big hit, because now...
Oh yeah, huge.
You're less tanky, but probably fair, because Armor 2 shielded X models like that...
Yeah, decently unfun.
Yeah, that's insanely strong, unless it's you're playing against Levy, who is irreducible. Any insert irreducible master. So if you're playing against Hoffman or Levy or Jezda, I guess would be the 3, and then
Damien.
Oh, right. So you had effectively 4 masters in the game who had an equitable chance at killing your shit.
I feel like it still wasn't the hardest, but yeah, it was definitely super annoying.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get on to probably the most talk change, Lady Justice. Everyone pretty much knew that I considered Lady J to be the best master in the game. And this is, I think, the most interesting changes, because I honestly think this was a side grade, a slight nerf, obviously, but mostly a side grade.
Well, it was the big nerfs. And they're 2-part. One is they affected 33, which, we'll jump ahead to the Outcast section.
No pine backs.
No pine backs. 33 isn't burying and can't pull back the Black Joker, which is also important, but for this, not, as insane, right? So you can't get... Yeah, so you can't get the super berry, and then that just kind of affects her entire kit with her kidnap, and then she can't just auto bury 2 models a turn on her own with whatever her action is.
Bonus action / Ashwood Coffin. Yeah, so I'll just go into the changes real quick. You now discard a card instead of suffering damage, so now everyone's now a little bit tankier, but you're going to be more card intensive. And the create a coffin markers has to be in base contact with an enemy model. So this is going to make it decently annoying to actually create them, because there's going to be a lot of ways where it's able to just not be placed, as well as the fact that you no longer have 4-inch range, you now are 2-inch range. Slightly less than 2-inch range, actually. Actually, wait. You can probably still place it. Wait.
You can.
How is it worded?
Can
you still make it within 2 of yourself when a friendly
mark within 1 inch of itself and in base contact with the enemy?
It's slightly, just barely, slightly less than 3 inches. Got it.
Yeah, that depends on the model, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's, probably that's great. Good change. Consecrated Ground now allows friendly marshals to ignore friendly coffin when drawing line of sight. So now you're going to be able to shoot through things.
Right? You can do a really nice gun line with Lady J now.
I think that's going to be her main style play, because we'll get into it in a second. But regeneration removed. Guns. Yeah, slightly less tanky. She can no longer just see through, line of sight for literally no reason.
No, because she's blind. So it's like a pun on being blind. You actually can see everything when you're blind.
Yeah, as we learned from Daredevil, you actually just get better senses when you're blind, better than seeing.
Yes,
because that's obviously what happens when people are blinded.
That is how it happens. Have you not seen Daredevil?
Yeah.
It's a documentary.
So, yeah, Beyond Time, it's just the simple thing Taras always have, where you can just target buried models, ignoring range line of sight. Entropic Debt now got changed. It's no longer a 5+, it's now just a stat 6 gun, which Still ignores line of sight, so this is keeping that fun little thing. 2, 3, 4 ignores hard to kill, and if the target's undead, you just give it Adversary Marshal, which is kind of insane.
Which is great because the coffins make them undead.
Yeah.
So, like, this is just 2, 3, 4 isn't like sexy damage or whatever, but like it's stat 6 with a always plus flip. I know it's not actually always plus flip, but like you're gonna get the plus flip a lot, right? And then you ignore hard to kill, which is like a really big thing, and you're gonna reliably just like put damage into things with this, which is really good.
Yeah, I think this gut action is kind of insane. Obviously, 2, 3, 4 is not the greatest damage track in the word, but giving Adversary Marshal is actually pretty nice.
It makes everything like really good at killing now. And you already had like some things that were good at killing innately in your crew. I really think a lot of these changes are going to help the Judge. Like, I think Judge was already like a fine model, and now like you're a 3, 4, 6 on plus flips, and you're gonna really reliably get Crumble away on plus flips. Like, it buffs up a lot of the rest of her crew. Now the Lone Marshal just gets to shoot on running gun with plus flips. That seems good. And doesn't ignores the thing so they can see through it, doesn't have cover applied. Like, that's really good. So her specific killing capacity on her own got lessened, but the utility across the board of the crew went up. The one we haven't talked about yet is they just get focus for free now.
No, I mean they always got focus for free.
I thought it used to be a card. Does that not
what do you mean
anymore?
It used to be a card?
They had to discard the card to gain the focus.
No, Burial Rites always just dropped a coffin and gave everybody focus. The big change is it's now possibly to be used as a bonus action. So yeah, Burial Rites can now be a bonus action. So you can, use it as your bonus action because burying models doesn't matter as much anymore.
Right.
And instead just get a coffin going, get your focus up, and maybe even more relevantly, drop it next to somebody to just make them undead.
Yep. Seems good.
So I think you're going to be seeing a lot of that. To quickly go over the other changes before we talk about how good the gun line is a little bit more. They removed one of the triggers from the gun, which is fine because that trigger just gave Adversary Marshal. Ashwood Coffin now gained the second chance trigger and a crow, as well as it's now a bonus action. No longer a bonus action, is now just once per turn. So the big part of that is obviously you're no longer going to be able to double bury somebody because that's just not a thing you can do anymore because you don't have the bonus action to bury in the Ashwood Coffin to just take the bonus action. Did they just change the names of those? I actually don't remember. I think, Equilibrium was the non-bonus action.
Yeah.
And Ashwood Coffin was they just swapped them because Equilibrium would let you just take the Ashwood Coffin action. This is how you got the 2 berries. Now you can only ever get the 1. Now the Ashwood Coffin is once per turn. You can still target.
Second chance. You get to do Ashwood Coffin a second time if you fail the first one.
Right, but you're never burying 2 models, which is huge for take the hit. Because one of the biggest problems was if you took a take the hit model, they could just bury it and then you, and now you have to take 2 take the hit models. So now you no longer have to do that. 1 take the hit model is all you need because they target the person who they want to bury. You take the hit, and they can no longer target that person anymore. So if they failed against the take the hit model, it doesn't matter if they got the trigger or not. At best, they can just then target the take the hit model. So it's you actually have decent tech about protecting models that you don't want to be buried. It's now feasible instead of being like, hire 2 mannequins if you're Arcanist. It's like, well, that was never happening.
And just most a range 6 berry is just going to be good, right? It's one where it's still really useful. It forces your opponent to like take the hit because chances are your stat 3, you're gonna bury the target unless you did a bad job picking your target, like that's on you then as the J player.
Yeah.
But you should reliably hit the berry, which is still really good. Like, no one's going to complain. Well, people are going to complain about it because their shit got buried.
Well, I'll actually say why the berry isn't as good anymore. There's a few other reasons. One, they gave it a TN of 10, I believe. They've never had a TN before, as I remember. And it's giving distract instead of injured. So now when they're buried, you're no longer just beating the crap out of them because they still have their defensive stats, which is pretty relevant.
And now they can unbury themselves?
Now the way the unbury works, previously it was unbury at where Lady J is, or any martial model within 8, I believe, was what it was. It can also be choose to unbury on them. Maybe it was 6, but I think it was 8. And the big difference now is you unbury in base contact with a friendly marshal, or coffin marker was what got added within 3 of this model. So the furthest away you can make it from Lady J is basically
3 inches.
No, it's 3 inches plus the base of the coffin marker, plus your model, plus if you have 33, another 2 inches and the base of the marker. So it's still a decent while if you want to do it, and because you can use burial rights as a bonus action, you still can just walk, throw out the coffin behind you, hit somebody with the berry, and pop them backwards. I don't think that'll be used as much. You no longer have regen. I don't know if you're running lead line code on her anymore, because you might want to think about expert marksman.
You're still taking.
You want to think about expert marksman now, though, because it'll be nice to have the ignore armor trigger, but it'll be kind of relevant to have the ignore friendly fire. Admittedly, the crew has some ways of getting around friendly fire, obviously attacking through the coffin markers they drop, but eventually you're going to get engaged, and if you're building a gun line, it's not the worst to have the master you want to make sure hits one shot to be able to get it. But I guess you really only need that one shot, so maybe you don't. Maybe I'm just delusional, but we'll see.
You just give yourself focus.
Yeah, and you can just give yourself focus. So maybe not. I think that's everything about her.
Yeah.
Oh, her shockwave is now a bonus action that has
your friends.
Yeah, it always did that, but they just slapped on Surge now.
Sorry. The big one is they changed it so the wording with the ignores. Yeah, they changed it so friendly marshal can just ignore an auto heal.
Yeah, is that not how it was before?
Yeah, that was.
I don't remember how it was worded before.
Yeah.
But you can now only mass heal your crew, once. You can't just do this like 3 times, which was, sometimes literally the play. So it's pretty nice to know that she's no longer just insanely healing the crew.
Immortal, yeah.
I think we're going to see a gunline Lady J. I think it'll be interesting. Yes. She has a few good martial models with a few good guns. I mean, the Judge, you talked about her melee attack, but she also just has a Peacekeeper with crit strike. So maybe we'll see that.
The one I'm thinking of, like, off the bat is, like, you have your melee whatever models, be it in or out of keyword. And then you have the Domadors, who can be behind all of the coffins and shoot and heal your own guys without exposing themselves to damage. Which, like, is pretty good, So you can have, like, a nice healing engine between Lady J and your Domadors and have your Judge out front in melee, and there's a little more support to not let Judge die.
Yeah. It's interesting. I guess we'll also just briefly mention 33 again. Torn in the Void action is going to be a stat 6 range 0, 2, 3, 5. If you're greater than 3, you can place itself or the target anywhere within one of its current location.
Never going to happen.
I think it'll happen. I mean, it's pretty.
Yes, it will happen, but like not when you need it to. It's gonna happen like they blacked. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, I can place them. It doesn't actually. And then they're
placing with Lady J does do 1 point of damage.
Does do a damage, yeah. But it's gonna. You can't rely on it because it's not reliable. Like it's not. You can't do it. So it's cute, it's nice, but whatever. Don't ignore it for the purpose of taking the action is my
Yeah.
Opinion.
Tome trigger, glimpse, and then a ram trigger for slam the coffin, which is going to be a new once per turn, which just makes a coffin marker and base contact with the target. And you can only target enemies, so no targeting your own guys to make it. I don't think you would, but whatever. And then obviously can't draw black jokers anymore, which is, great.
Should have been the case.
Yeah,
to begin with.
In the beginning.
The fact that it was allowed to draw jokers, when there's a bunch of actions that were released at the same time as this model that already said non-jokers. Don't know how that was allowed through. Don't know. I mean, I already don't know how 33 in its original form was allowed to exist anyway, but regardless of that, I don't know how that was allowed in. Whatever.
I just want to say I think 33 did nothing wrong. It was a perfectly valid and useful addition to the Tara kit. He just shouldn't have been able to teleport back to his deployment zone.
Yes.
Someone inside of him.
That's also my thing. And we covered Outcast. That was the only Outcast change.
Yeah. Well, let's take a second, I guess, to talk a little bit about 33 and Tara. And obviously the kidnap doesn't work anymore. That's the only change to Outcast. It's just that, and also not drawing the Black Joker, which is relevant, but not that relevant for Tara, but it's there.
It's for out of keyword hiring.
Yeah, really. You probably don't hire 33 anymore. I mean, it's not
anymore.
It's not
anymore.
I think being able to have an offensive Tara version where you have this surgical strike model that can let you temporarily grab a model and give you the rest of your crew access to it was a cool mechanic.
Yes.
And I kind of said that it's gone.
Problem, and this is I've been kind of vocal in saying I don't think that I think Terra needed to be nerfed. 33 let me finish. Is the Terra was 33 was a problem with the berry and the guaranteed almost asterisk guaranteed nature of it, and then the snapback effect to put the thing you buried inside a crew that would murder it. Yeah. So the problem was not so much 33. Yes, I agree the berry 33 needed to get touched in some way. I don't know what the way was, probably not this.
Oh, I'll tell you.
That's sidebar. The problem was Terra's rewind and the snapback. That's what should have been changed. It's a really cool mechanic. Don't get me wrong. It's legit. It's awesome. But it made for incredibly unfun experiences that was innately bad for the game. As I was told when it first came out, it was, we'll just take the hit. No. At the time, my faction didn't have that. So I was told, switch factions. That's not good for the game. 33 was a symptom of the problem, which was the snapback. If we trade 33 for my master, it's not great, but at least I get to kill your shit back.
Well, another thing is, if the reply to 33 was just, if you have a model that's vulnerable to being kidnapped, all you had to do was, wait till they bury it, and your response is just activate the model, and it completely invalidates their ability to have the rest of the crew beat on it. Now they're having to do a lot more as far as playing with activation control, skipping activations. There's just so much more play around, and I think that's fine.
33 I think was 100% the problem. I mean, it's kind of fun to look at Tara and be like, the rewind mechanic is a little disgusting with 33, and then I want to change the rewind mechanic. I think the fact that it was really only disgusting with 33 wasn't really. I think that means it wasn't a Tara problem. I think the rewind mechanic is really cool, really interesting. It's a fun new concept for a master, and I think we'll see more play with it going forward, and I really do like the concept of it. And there is play around to it, kind of. You can remove these markers. Buildings, obviously, they can't place in them. There's a few fun shenanigans that help shuts it down, or help curtails it a little bit. And it was broken because 33 had a guaranteed bury. I think there were ways to change 33 that didn't involve getting rid of a guaranteed bury aspect while allowing it to keep with Tara. I mean, obviously, the big change is just change how it unburies. So if 33 buries something, it doesn't unbury at 33. maybe it leaves like a marker where it unburies. Like they're like, you can call it like phase in space or something like that, where they just like they blink out. They place an indestructible marker or something like that, and they blink back, or they go back to, or they unbury in base contact with a friendly model and their crew or something like that. There's a few ways you could have changed it where that was fine. And I think you're right. It was nice having a guaranteed bury in Tara, and losing that is decently brutal, and it'll pretty much bring Tara back to a full alpha version, I think, of her crew, where you're just going to be fast focusing a Nothing Beast, rewinding it, launching it forward, and then just like seeing what you can kill. And that's probably where she'll end up, and rewind markers will actually get to be used a lot more interestingly in the mid to late game on trying to score points and stuff like that. And I think that'll be a fun way to play Tara. It is sad that she's still going to suffer massively from the problem of not having a reliable berry to do all the fun attacking berry models, and that kind of sucks. I will miss having that, but there was no way you could have the two exist where it unburies in a model your crew, and you can also have that model move 20 inches at the end of any activation.
That part just had to go. I just think there were more elegant solutions. And the main thing is, like, the design aspect, I think that it's frustrating to have so much Tara text gated behind such utterly unreliable mechanics. Having one guaranteed berry that turns on like half of the text in that crew, I think that was a fine design decision. So anyway, that's probably 33.
I think Tara is still in a fine spot. You'll just replace 33 with some tools for the job models, draw some high cards. Nothing Beast will just kill something. It won't be as fun anymore, and but it will be more reliable and probably less frustrating for your opponent as well. Even though it'll still be pretty frustrating.
One of the things you could hire 33 for, which was just hiring it if you thought they were going to take some buried models, is better now because it can charge and do a damaging attack.
Yeah.
True.
Granted, Outcast didn't, you could just hire the Nothing Beast to do the same thing, but now you have more utility options, which is nice.
Yeah, and it's
Nothing Beast.
Yeah.
I like hiring the Nothing Beast.
I'll hire Nothing Beast. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, onwards to Pandora. Pandora's changes are pretty small and, pretty needed. No Shelter Here aura is the only kind of weird one that was changed from 3 down to 2.
I don't that was the hazardous aura, right? That's it, which is
fine.
It's my thing. My thing is obviously it's a 1-inch change, right? Like that. But how big is that? I don't know if that really affects a ton of it.
I don't think it affects it much at all.
I don't know if 3 inches was terrible, right? Jackdaw's hazardous aura is 4 on his upgrade or whatever. I don't get it. I don't know if it's.
It was a pretty good ability. It's kind of nice that it's nerfed. It's fine. It was an aura that, I don't know, it's fine. I think they were just hitting her just a little bit because she was a little too strong, and this is just a nice small change.
I just realized
it has the board space it covers, but yeah.
Yeah. I just realized Aspect of Fortune. So I read that as it now provides a plus flip to the duel total instead. Now you get a plus flip to your defense and cheat off the top of your deck.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So that's a flat buff.
I missed
that.
Yeah, the main reason they gave her this nice little buff is basically because they obviously nerfed her other defensive tech.
Yeah.
Because they slapped on Heed No Fear, so you can no longer gain the adversary condition, which means you can no longer have, the permanent neg flips on Luck Thief.
Which is good.
Yes, very, very good. And then the other big change, obviously, is Expose Fears is once per activation.
Which I feel like that's how it was played anyway. I guess, I don't know, because it was hard to get Misery to proc multiple times on the same activation, because you would need multiple of the woe models, all that are different Misery.
Yeah, it was hard.
Right. It didn't happen often, but I suppose if it did, like, I move you 8 inches.
Right.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the fact that they can rip off the stunned and
Yeah, and then
ability,
ping-pong it.
if I
Yeah.
recall correctly, gave you stunned, just means that any woe model nearby means that you get to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have woe models.
Yeah.
So.
True.
I mean, it was pretty decent. I mean, that's what they would do. No shelter here. Push models forward. Get the stun, move you, or do the damage, move you, do the damage, and then rip the stun off when do it again.
Yeah.
To get the plus flip, and yeah, it was pretty annoying. So it is nice to know that it's at least nerfed. But you're right, it was more of an edge case. They normally needed more setup, and generally it was a win more ability.
Right.
So it's harder to close out games now with Pandora, I think, is the big change with that. But it's now much easier to just kill Pandora, so that's cool.
Well, no. You mean, well, yes, it is easier because now you can.
Yeah, right.
I mean, obviously.
Hey, just hired models from 2 different keywords. Is it that hard? Jesus.
Or deal lots of blast damage,
Yeah.
Hey, the one time I killed her, that is what I did. Well, that was that. It was Title Von Shield, so I'm like, oh, you put me on negatives? I ignore them with Hannah. Hannah, go kill her.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's a couple models out there that just ignored negative flips.
Yeah, but then again,
many.
Von Shield is the way you play it. Title Von Shield is how you play against this Pandora anyway. So
yeah.
So
yeah, just a nice little tampering down on Pandora, since they nerfed the rest of the top end. She probably needed a little soft nerf, and that's exactly what we saw.
And tell us how you feel about Kirai.
Kirai's dead to me. Kirai is super dead to me. I think there is no model who suffered more of an injustice in this errata than Kirai. I think honestly, she's the only model I really care that she's the only model I really think was actually super over nerfed. Like, Next Kids, I actually kind of got because, Next Kids were just hilariously cracked. Hoffman, I got because mostly he was a negative play experience. And to be quite frank, the other version of Hoffman is now much more playable. And even this version of Hoffman is still pretty good. But Kirai is now just, utterly killed. And I think part of the reason, obviously, was she was a negative play experience. People loved running tallies of how many soulstones and models you made, and I think her biggest problem is I learned how to read the summoning rules correctly. Once I did, she kind of no longer was, in my opinion, a top broken master. She was still very good, and now she is just pretty bad. So I guess we'll get right into the changes. The big one, obviously, is Join Us, got renamed, and it's now 8 inches of Kirai. You can only be used by models of cost 5 or higher, and the TN to resist is now lowered to a 12, which means pretty much you're never really going to ever proc Join Us again.
It's still a 7, average of 7 needing to be flipped or cheated. Yeah, okay, fine, they cheat and dodge it every time. Now their hand's empty. Go murder them. It's still good. It's not an auto summon anymore. Now it's
who's procking
maybe
it?
I get it.
Who's procking it? A Curio? A Goodman that you have to keep back? A Goodman I don't really even like hiring anymore?
Gorios are great models.
Okay. Vengeance Incarnate got a crow tracked onto it. I mean, realistically, probably always should have had that. It was a little weird. You could only get that with 8. None of these models really like being next to other people besides Kirio. Gorio, I guess, but still your whole crew dies to a stiff breeze. Sundering now has its max damage to an increase of +2, so just 2 minions next to a model, and you are at max damage, so you are now min 3. And Revenge only affects willpower duels generated by Kirai, Kirio, and actions that targeted Kirai. So the reason I said the main reason I think you're really only using Kirio to summon is because she's the only one who's reliably getting to the negative flips. Obviously, unless you hire Sybil, which you probably are now more required to than before, just to try to get more Chain Spirit upgrades, Chain Spirit models summon. Yeah. I legitimately think this kills this model in the competitive sense. Obviously, I'm being a bit more doom and gloom because I am looking at this from the competitive sense. I think in friendly matches or against people who aren't, tryhards like me, it's still pretty decent. I'll admit that. It's still pretty decent, just because I doubt most people were min-maxing Sundering as much as I was, as well as the fact that I think most people are probably fine hiring the actual minions that Kirai is meant to hire, like with Shannon and Goryo and the other weird models I've never hired before in my life.
Also, isn't this the keyword that has a stat 7 lure on one of its models?
Yes.
Seems
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but
I feel like you might lean into that a little bit more, so that you don't have to commit your whole crew into them. I don't think I ever saw you hire that model, which seems like this crew was
I
kind of built
don't normally
for.
hire Jakuna just because I would have too many other good models I think I hire before her. She just dies.
Yeah.
The problem
I think Jakuna's
you're
really
playing a
good in this version of
crew.
Kirai.
What?
I think Jakuna's just was meant to be very good in this version of Kirai.
Yeah,
Like
I
it kind
think
of does
the
everything that
problem
you
the
want.
problem still is though is that Sybil's just better, right? She has a lure, fine, you lose a stat on it, but you get hilariously massive buffs in that models within an inch of you or negative to willpower duels, which is so relevant for the crew, and that's never really going to change. The biggest problem now, though, with the crew inherently is that most of the models in Kirai always had the problem of dying if you looked at them strongly. And it made up for this by summoning massive amounts of minions that bogged you down. You're going to be summoning a lot less because the TM being lower is definitely relevant, as well as the fact that um, flipping, you're making it an obscene amount less duels. So enslaved spirits are no longer proccing them, which was the big way to get more models out, and you're pretty much now only proccing them by summoning enslaved spirit and then moving the model that moved.
So I guess here's the question: Was how it was good for the game?
Yes.
And if it was, why? If a 3-stone model can summon 3 models in activation, we'll just say that
it couldn't, but okay.
2, fine. I mean, it's moving through things, right?
Sure, you could summon one model per other enemy model it was next to. So theoretically, you could summon like 10.
So
in a turn,
here's my thing. You just talked about how you don't bring Jakuma because you already had so many good choices. And then you have a mechanic built around summoning chaff. Your opponent takes damage to kill, and it slogs them down.
No, I don't think you had good choices before. You just had more forced choices. Most of the models I hired were never really used for the initial summonings. Most of the initial summonings you got were from Mercurio.
I'm not saying for the summon. I'm just saying for the game in general.
Oh,
if you already have a bunch of good models that get hired, Sybil, Detsuba, whatever it is, because your rezzers, you have a ton of choice. Dead Rider, take your pick. The bench is full of quality models to hire into a rezzer crew. So you have good models that you then just tell your opponent you can't deal with these because here's a fuck ton of summoned things that are engaging you, also can score me points. And how do you deal with this, right? If that's good for the game, I don't know if I want to play this game. Well, is kind of like my personal take on this. So I think she's still quite fine the way she is. She opens up multiple play styles. You can actually leverage a lot of the rest of her card that doesn't focus on crushing your opponent's soul. Like, because that's what the summoning was.
No, you're just wrong on that. You can't leverage anything else of her card. There was nothing else to leverage. You were. I mean, the best part of Kirai is she actually used the full part of her card. And to be frank, the Rezzer, as much as we want to talk about like how good Rezzer models are, they weren't that good, and you didn't really hire what you would call the standard ones. They aren't that good anymore. Like, the power creep is pushing out the versatile Rezzer lists, and I'll say that quite actually boldly. Sure. But it's quite true. You're not seeing them hired because the game has, first of all, incentivized just playing in keyword a lot more. And Kirai in particular had a very structured crew because you kind of needed it. Because you needed to facilitate the Akirio going in, you needed to facilitate the protection of the models with Goshin for take the hit, and you needed to facilitate movement with Enslaved Spirit because your crew's so slow. I mean, the crew, in my opinion, the core Kirai crew was actually pretty much like forced the way it was, which is why you couldn't hire Jakuna much, mostly because Datsuba was just better. It wasn't hard to get, plus to attacks. They're on a negative to willpower, and you get the plus to damage.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So, Datsuba was always kind of, a little cracked. But besides her, the rest of the crew actually kind of isn't that great. It was always suffer from the fact that it dies very easily, and the only real way it doesn't is with Incorporeal, but modern crews in every faction has easy ways to answer Kirai, I think. Kirai was unplayable into Rezzers. She was unplayable into Explorers. She was unplayable into Arcanists, and I think she was unplayable into Guild probably as well. So you suffered from, obviously, one of the problems where I don't think she was unplayable into Outcast, although she's not necessarily great against, like, Levy or something like that. She's not, getting hilariously countered. Because that was part of the problem, is she actually has real counterplay to her. It's why I actually think we didn't see her much in the top 16. We didn't see her much in the top level of any tournament play we've seen out throughout this whole entire year. Most of the people actually complaining about Kirai, I think, are people who play casually. And I think that's, or at local tournaments where you don't have a lot of experience Kirai, or you don't have the necessary models to bring to beat her. And I kind of agree, like, that can represent a problem. So I understand the nerfs from the negative playstyle aspect. But if we're talking about competitive Malifaux, which is obviously what I'm mostly talking about and focus on, I don't think she was at a level where she actually needed a nerf, or it didn't need to be this big. I think you could have kept the change to Chain Spirits. I think within 8 was already a massive change, and probably the only relevant one it needed. I think the TN of 5 is actually largely unneeded, as well as the Sundering, because the problem for me with the change to the willpower duel being a 12, as well as needing a model of cost 5 or greater, is the consistency of the crew is now gone. And the consistency of the crew wasn't necessarily great otherwise, because sometimes they just made the duels even at neg flips, and you just would lose from there. So if you're playing competitively, I really think the current version, her consistency being gone, means I wouldn't want to play her anymore. I think she's still fine and is and can have some massive game potential. Just if she just pops off and, like, your opponent doesn't make the duels and whatever. But you're no longer having, the same consistency to be able to make her a top tier master. And you really did needed those big sunderings to even just, like, kind of win some games. Whereas you would just watch your crew do nothing otherwise.
I appreciate all of those points, and I think your feelings are valid. But she was miserable to play against, and I'm happy they changed her.
Yeah. I understand that. I 100% understand that. So, I think, as you pointed out, Brian, this is a big example of, in my opinion, a nerf to negative play experience.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take the defensive argument for the competitive Malifaux. Sure, and I think it's perfectly fine to nerf a negative play experience. I get it. Kirai's just dead to me, and that's fine.
That's fair. But I think that's, like, a larger, like, idea behind Errata is balance important, or is fun important?
Fun, and because they need to sell the game.
Right, and they go hand in hand. Right, and they go hand in hand, right? Like, mostly. Because balance can create fun, but, like you're saying, like, she's dead to you. Part of your enjoyment from Kirai was the fact that she very reliably won without a problem, which was fun for you. And that, like, NPE skew of, like, fun creates, like, a zero-sum game of fun. And that, even if, like, the balance is killing something to remove it, that's better for fun than maintaining, like, a stable of X number of really strong masters that can compete at any level. So taking Kirai out of that, S tier, A tier, whatever bullshit tier we want to describe it as, is more important, in my opinion, is more important, because then you don't have people who want to quit your game. And that's from you just hear people talking about playing against Kirai, and the person who played against it, I never experienced someone say that was an enjoyable hour of my life, because normally the game's over right away.
You didn't see my game versus who was it? Was it Cackle? It might have been Cackle, where they just were Rezzers. I went into the game being like, Kirai just loses to Rezzers, but I'm going to try it anyways to prove a point.
It was Josh, I think.
Oh, was it?
Sure.
And then you just lost. They enjoyed that game because Kirai did nothing.
Sure.
Also, I'm just going to say, I think you could have played that better. I think you committed your models differently, and I don't think it's as dead as you think it is.
And that's
you might be right.
Fair. I'm just saying, with the data points I have from interacting with people, that was the messaging behind Kirai was, I would rather not play the game and just resign the event than play against her in the round, because why bother? And if that's a vocal super minority of your game, that's a problem and needs to get changed, even if that kills her. So yeah, she might be dead, but it was probably good for the game as a whole. That's my main.
Yeah, and this is where I'll put a little bit more pushback on Weird for changes like these that do, in my opinion, kill models. Kirai isn't killed. She's probably fine at
OG is still really nice.
Whatever.
I'm a fan.
And OG Kirai is fine too. I'm just saying that we look at Lady. The sad part to me though is we look at something like Lady J, where they got more nerfed and then moved sideways playstyle. I think you could have done that to Kirai, and they just didn't. Maybe just don't make Sundering an attack that scales off of having the minions if you're going to make them so hard to summon. Do something different or more interesting with it.
Change, yes.
And instead, they just lowered her. All they did to her, instead of giving her a different tool, was just make her tools worse. And she already wasn't putting in top results. And now I think it's going to be worse. And that's fine. You're right. It wasn't fun to play against. And that's the reason I actually didn't play Kirai a lot, is because I had multiple people tell me I didn't enjoy that game, and I was just well, that kind of sucks. I don't get fun from that, so I would then try not to play Kirai. It's the same reason I stopped playing Nexus at any hyper competitive event when original Nexus was around, because people didn't enjoy it. My locals I would go to, I just wouldn't play Nexus because people just hated playing against it. But then I fly down to Texas and I want to beat Andre and Brian, and then I play Nexus and win a tournament. So you do what you have to do to be king of Texas.
Sometimes people would trot out evidence of oh, well, this thing that people say is broken, I don't see it dominating every single competitive tournament. Yeah.
Because people are monsters.
None of these tournaments are for money. The incentive is to go there and have fun.
Right.
Yeah. That's why mostly when I try to find out what I think is the most bros and masters, is I talk to the people in top 16 Vassal, and I talk to the people who are going to the invitational match at Nova, what we consider to be the people who are actively trying to be the most competitive they can be. But even them, a lot of them aren't willing to change factions. They're not willing to reprint models to play competitive, which is why I actually tried a harder look towards Vassal, because I really think that develops a true competitive community. And I think the fact that you weren't seeing much Kirai there is a little show off, although the Russians apparently really thought Kirai was broken.
I think just on a part of her not showing up a ton, there's also we implemented clocks, right? In Vassal, and a lot of events, you're lucky if you get 2.5 hour rounds, right? And even if she's winning, she does take a lot of time to execute, even when you know what you're doing and have it smooth. There's just a lot of things.
The perfect summation. Yeah, the perfect summation of this is I went to a local in Des Moines, Iowa, where Brian is, and he got to experience me playing Kirai against him, and he did not have fun that game. And the other people at the tournament, because this is the only crew I had, because I
used my own Kirai models against me.
I didn't even bring my own Kirai models because they weren't built.
I know.
So I had to borrow Brian's, and I didn't bring Damien. That was my compromise to not playing Damien. Is I haven't played Kirai at a real tournament. I wanted to see what it's like physically on the board. And first game I played, ended up tying against a guy because we just ran out of time. I think he slow played a little bit, but you have so much going on that's not that surprising. Where it's like, oh, I have to look at all these models. So a big part of it is it's part of the problem I had with Nexus 2, where you can't even complain that your opponents are slow playing because they have to look at so many models.
Right. It's very similar. They create analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Because when you have 38 different models to choose from, and none of your models can move without crossing through 8 of them, you're kind of I gotta kill them all. Which one do I start? It forces and slow play.
The other thing is, it's such a snowbally matchup that you have to be extremely careful at every single move. It's just I guess I wasted 2.5 hours because I moved that one model in shadow position, and I just gave him a summon for no reason. Cool.
I accidentally got within an inch of Bell. And I didn't need to. Sybil. It's fuck. Yeah. We talked endlessly about Kirai. Let's just move on. I think.
Sounds good.
All right. Yan Lo, the other problem child of Rezzers. This is the one, though, that is actually, probably one of the most broken masters we've had in a while, especially in M2E. I think his value did go down a lot in M3, but people still had a lot of holdover hate for him, and so it's not surprising we saw
still really good,
these changes.
And he was still really good, and he's still probably fine.
Yeah, so this is another nice example. I really, by the way, I love this errata. As much as I talk about how I'm sad to see Hoff and Kirai go, I love what this errata has done. So Yan Lo, biggest change, I think, the most relevant change, the only one anyone truly wanted, Hole in the World is gone. Fuck having Hole in the World on a stonable master. Legitimately, just fuck having Hole in the World, period. I don't think this trigger should exist. It's way too strong.
Yeah. And especially when you have, it's on models that have just a stat 6, which, assuming you're not hitting a stat 7, it's probably going, it's going through, right?
I'm showing the old one. That's my problem.
Realistically, it's going to go through.
Yeah.
And that's just one where, it's granted, they swapped it for Knock Aside, which, is still a pretty good trigger.
Yeah, I think it's the best compromise. Hole in the World is disgusting filth that allowed you to, for example, one of my biggest problems, I played against this master so many times because, Pope Darpa is a 10 Thunders player, and Yan Lo is one of the better masters. You Hole in the World a Peacekeeper into the middle of the forest, the model's gone for 4 activations just because of how slow it is. That's something you can't do with Knock Aside.
But you give it Bloodline Coat, so then the Peacekeeper's
I'm an Arcanist, thank you.
Get better upgrades, duh.
The other key part of this is that Hole in the World has been printed on ranged attacks. And we have plenty of repositioning abilities, but they are predominantly on melee attacks, or have very strong conditions on them. Bass has a 12-inch range reposition, but you just don't stand in terrain that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, don't be in concealment or whatever it is. Yeah.
But the melee versions are all pretty fair. They're strong, but they require commitment is the big thing, and this just didn't.
Yeah. So the next change is Spirit Guides got replaced with Preparation. So now you just you give a guy focus. Cool.
Instead of.
It was moving them in focus. What was it? It was
something and
else.
Focus. Yeah.
I
don't remember.
I played against so much Yan Lo. How am I blanking on this?
Heal. Whatever.
No, it wasn't a heal. It was a movement. I thought
they made it worse, but it still give focus to your own crew and move them. It's still good.
Oh, didn't they have to be an ancestor in order to get the focus? Now you can give the focus to anybody.
Yeah.
Or, in order to get the tome trigger, which is no longer able to get built in, so you no longer just easily giving out focus. as well as the fact that his movement effect now is completely changed. They actually have to take an action, a general action that moves them. So just charge and move, or charge and walk are the only two that do that. And you get placed within one of it. So no more weary roading your guy and just flopping someone.
Well, because they removed weary road. Well, they changed weary road.
Yeah, they changed it.
Right, and like a very needed change. It also affected like take the hit, so you couldn't take the hit, an attack on Yanlo, place Yanlo, place it, like do the weird take the hit, place Yanlo, place, and somehow on an attack get like 6 inches of movement for your own crew or whatever it was.
Yeah,
it's fair to remove
that. So some nice changes there. Defense stat now 5, so now you actually can look at this model and attempt to start trying to kill it. Because before stat 6 to 7 was pretty brutal.
Incorporeal, like with like good take the hit models that
you always place next to. Yeah, it was a little bit more feasible to kill this guy now. Clear the path, now replaced with Spirit Guide. The whole once per activation, friendly retainer minion or soul partner attached to reliquary upgrade. Get to draw a card, which is
worse than what it was. Worse than
you're
draw
not,
2 cards.
You're not, and remove markers. Like that was a really relevant part. It's like,
damn,
you're scoring. Bad. My bad. You don't have scheme markers there anymore.
Oh, he's gonna score that. Wait, actually, you're not gonna score, and I'm gonna take 2 cards because fuck you.
No, that ability was one of the most frustrating in the game. So that's a very nice change. So most likely going to get a lot less cards. But funnily enough, because each reliquary upgrade has a action to attach it to a different model, you can now just turn your model as an AP draw card once per activation.
Dude, can you throw them all?
Yeah, I think every Yanlo upgrade just has hand this model to another one, doesn't it?
No, that's McCabe. These are stuck on them. Unless they get...
That's correct.
Yeah, that's McCabe.
Reliquary Azamu, tactical actions, friendly only, attach this upgrade to the target. Everyone has a new Guardian on each of their reliquary upgrades.
That's a one action, not a bonus.
I'm looking at...
They all just have an upgrade to attach it to another one. So once per... Yeah.
Interesting.
So you can now, on all of your minions or Soul Porter, take an action to just draw a card once per activation. So you're going to be able to get a lot more than 2 cards a turn.
It's basically Yannick text. Take an action, draw a card.
Yep.
But with less setup. Cool. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. Look, it's part Brezzer, so it has to be broken.
That's fair.
So I still think this is much better. Especially because the card draw isn't coming right after Yanlo, configures the top 5 cards of his deck. So you're drawing random cards instead of, red jokers and 13s. It's still probably going to be much better. Also, you're still using AP to hand it around. But it's definitely something that you're probably going to see a lot of doing just because drawing cards is good. So Final Wishes, the TN is increased to 12. Doesn't really change too much. It did get a crow slapped on, so now you're no longer either needing to stone or,
Now you just get to give out your relics for free.
Yeah. So it pretty much is a straight upgrade. Costs 1 more card, but now you just get it.
They changed Weary Road, so now it has a TN.
They did change Weary Road, so now that has a TN. I think the more relevant change is that Yanlo
markers.
What?
It also removes markers now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of the target, so it's not just 2 inches. It's not just 4 inch remove 2 markers. No, Yanlo is still going to be a really good model. The biggest problem, the biggest change is he can't get reliquary upgrades anymore.
He can't give them, which is good because you could have given him all. Granted, I've never actually seen anyone bother to give him his own upgrades or like give him reliquaries because he was already winning by so much. But not letting him do that is probably wise. The one that I don't think we can ignore, we're not there yet, but calling specific to is Yanlo's upgrade ignores the empty vassal ability. So Kamainu don't get plus move plus to their all flips for shepherding and defending him around the map. Which is probably needed because it's dumb.
It's the other piece that drops his defenses by quite a bit, so he's definitely killable now. So
still have to kill the 2 Kamainu first, but
yeah.
But dogs are very killable without all that bonus.
I don't know. They take the hit on each other then, and you can't do it. And then he obeys your own shit away.
You still, most of the time, gave him a different upgrade that wasn't the Yanlo one anyways, I think. Well, but now you're incentivized to keep that upgrade because you want to hand it around to draw cards, so
that's fair.
It's interesting.
Well, the other thing is, as long as the thing has the Yanlo reliquary, it can't benefit from the other
at all.
Upgrades having anti-vessel.
Right. Oh, right. Because that is part of it. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, I think it's I think overall nice changes to Yanlo. I mostly cared about the hole in the world. The fact that he now can draw a lot of cards is a little concerning, but it's probably fine.
He already could draw a lot of cards. It's the same.
He's also moving around the board so much less. Right. I think it's much more manageable.
He can't move. I had a game against him where I had a chance at a tie, and then in the course of one activation, he did 30 inches of movement and scored a point, and dropped a ski marker to score a point. And I was just well, I couldn't really play around that, so I guess I lose. So I can't do that anymore. That's good.
The reliquary upgrade can now be given to Soul Porter, slightly irrelevant, and I did forget to mention that disengage is also one of the actions that moves a model. That's a general action.
Yes.
Also, fun fact, moving 0 inches still counts as moving, so just take disengage, don't move, still place. You're Yanlo. So that's fun.
Why would you not just take a walk at that point? Just to make them
try getting out.
Oh,
yeah, maybe you want to try to run
or if
away
they knock you to 0, just with a severe, don't forget
exactly.
You can still move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. All right, that was all the changed models. I guess I'll just ask, are there any models you wanted to see hit that weren't, or vice versa? I guess this is a complete nerfing, so we're not going to talk about anything buff, but was there anything you wanted to see nerfed?
Well, obviously Damien probably should get touched in some capacity, but that doesn't matter because it won't happen for a while, so not really worth mentioning. But I had to.
I think biggest surprises are that they didn't hit Yannick at all.
Yeah.
Who, I don't know. I think it's kind of fine, but it's definitely strong. I'm not entirely sure where I land on that model.
Yeah, I think just there's 2 parts there. Is they don't want to change the starter sets because that would be awkward.
No, that's true.
Which is why the Arcanist set with the pass tokens, except that nothing will change it. That's the way Arcanists will be now. Then my other half of the Yannick thing, which I've brought this up in some of the Discords and I've kind of gotten stamped down on it, but I stand by it, is Yannick, while she brings something to outcasts, all of the masters and outcasts can find a way to use ingenuity to make an engine, right? Whereas in Von Schiele, it naturally she doesn't do anything to create an engine. The engine is innate to the Freikorps because the Freikorps is already demanding a ton of discard. Innately, you have all of the discard effects just forced into the crew by circumstance. So she goes from being a fine model, her stunning shotgun is really nice. She's a fine 7-stone henchman in the rest of the faction, to going insane in a keyword with wants focus, wants single target big attacks from Hannah and Eric, because like almost every model is already forced to discard a card to do the thing it wants to do for its purpose. So if you change Yannick, you bring, like, you kind of disable again those things and make Von Shield have to work much harder. Granted, does he need help?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I would say yes.
I think unequivocally, yes. He was unplayable before Yannick and broken after.
This is my thing. Like he in air quotes worked without Yannick, but you had to work so hard to do it. Why not just play not Von Shield? Now you just play Von Shield, because then like he's not insane at anything, but he's really good at just playing the game unless you have to scheme.
Using Yannick.
I think before his biggest selling point was his flexibility, but his to me cool mechanic was that you could do basically anything, but you had to be extremely careful about how you budgeted your resources, because you could do way more things than you would ever have the resources to do. And they printed Yannick, and it just utterly subverted the entire core mechanic of the crew. In a way, it's like, oh, you had costs? Nope, you have resources instead.
Well, and that's like cool. The other interesting one is like it feels like they did make Yannick with the intention that like this solves the TN problem and the card hungriness of Von Shield. But what it instead has created is it doesn't actually fix the TN problem. It's just like now you get 5 Severes a hand to go and murder things. But the TN problem, you're still, now it's a question of, do you cheat your 11 to get your TN? Like,
no, I pity you.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
No, I'm not saying it's a problem, but it like creates its own warping effect where I'm still like consistently failing every one of my TNs, and now I just happen to have the card to cheat it. And it still feels kind of bad when all I needed was a 5 and I can't flip a 5. Like it was a recent Team Cup game. We counted it. I failed 32 of my own TNs. I failed every TN I flipped. And I was able to cheat like a third or half of them, or was willing to cheat, I should say, which is good. I was able to get the thing I wanted, but it didn't change the fact that it felt really bad to like try to do all of these one-off upgrades that Von Shield's giving off, have to invest an 11 to then take, equip it, which then has a TN to use the bonus action to throw a goddamn mine out. Oh, I failed the 4. Here's another 11 to cheat the minefield. Like, I was able to do it, but it still felt bad.
I think you might have been taking too many TN duels. I don't know. I play so much on Chill, and I don't have this problem.
Yeah.
Well, so I was trying to abuse the Hannah copy the leap. Okay. So Hannah bonus actions that's one bonus act, and then copies the leap. So Hannah did herself generated just with the bonuses 10, because I did like each round I was trying to do that. So that's 10 right there, and it's really expensive. Right, it's really efficient if it worked.
But you don't need to do that. You could just kill people with your gun and kill people with just hitting them.
Right, which is,
and that's how you have to play.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying. Is
it would be nice if you could do more of the fun, clever, actual equipment stuff. Actually look cool.
Do draw so many moderates that you can just afford to flip.
And
cheat so many TNs. Like the number of times I've had a hand that it's like, oh, I have 3 things in my TNs. I just get to cheat all of them, and it's Severes now.
Yeah, that's
my normal experience with that curve.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know, and it's going to be different because that's the way like variance works, right?
Yeah,
but those are my experiences with it. So like Yannick,
and
explicitly in Von Shield probably need, like, if you could make 2 versions of Yannick, the one that goes in Von Shield and one that's for the faction, I don't know how you change her in Von Shield. It's more accurately like you probably have to.
I don't want her in Levy either. Holy fuck, dude! Levy does not need to draw more cards.
I was gonna say I've also played her in Levy, and she works really well. Interestingly, the only mechanic you need is the Emissary, because Emissary plus Companion upgrade is just a combo with Yannick.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's disgusting. I hate it so much. Yeah. I legitimately hate Yannick so much. I think it's so weird we didn't see Outcast touch at all, because Outcast clearly has some of the best masters in the game at the moment. And all we saw was the 33 change for Tara, which beyond needed, but was definitely not the only thing that should have been touched. I think Shill needed to be tamped down somehow, and so did.
And that's where so
he's been touched so many times.
Levy's been touched so many times.
You make a mod model do that much irreducible, it's a problem.
But then they're printing the same attack elsewhere. So if they keep hitting Levy, that's a whole other bucket of guys, you should have done this right already. And then and if it's Yannick that is the thing that's causing the problem in Levy now, the Yannick has to be the answer. And Von Shield, Von Shield himself isn't the problem, it's Yannick, but they're clearly not going to be willing to change the starter set, so you have to accept Von Shield as is. Because if you, I don't know what you change on Von Shield.
The tools for the job
there
models.
There are so many things.
The Outcast having that much draw and tools for the job breaks the faction, I think. I think that's actually the only reason Levy's broken, is because he has, tools for the job models in keyword. It's legitimately disgusting. That he's able to guarantee that much obscene irreducible damage just because you're always able to draw an obscene amount of really good cards, ignoring the ones you draw naturally. So
the ability to reuse your Severes defensively too just makes them very difficult to interact with.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Well, but I think, at least again from the Frycore, tools for the job is how you mitigate the TN problem.
Drawing 10 cards is how you mitigate the TN problem.
It was the solution. So
you can lose it now. You don't need it anymore. You have Yannick. You can't have everything.
That's fair. But I suppose I don't have the data back. Never mind. Go ahead.
All right. Let's move on. I think we all want Outcast nerf. Goddamn. All right.
I think Outcasts are fine, and they've done nothing wrong. So
honestly, incoming new masters. Outcasts are probably.
I mean, we'll see. I think Tiri looks. I assume Tiri's going to be good. I am very.
I think she's broken. I'll get to talking about why later.
I think she looks really cool at a bare minimum. So,
beyond cool. So good aesthetic.
I try not to buy models because I'm poor, but I'm very much willing to spend the money on Tiri, and that's not because of a power level. I just think she looks cool and does cool shit.
Yeah, you're into furries. We got that.
Is she what? I thought she's
she is fuzz.
She's like a robot.
No, she's not. I mean, she is, but she has skin and fuzz, doesn't she?
Okay, I didn't know that. I legitimately thought they were an entire race of robot people. I thought that's what they were.
Yeah, they're all constructs.
It's not a race, right? I thought they were I thought it was more like a construction than a race.
Just a construct that has skin.
I haven't read the lore yet, so I don't know. I thought they were a native robot race of Malifaux. Is that legitimately? That's what I thought. That were just there because they were there and don't ask questions.
Yeah, they're a native race that. Yeah, I don't know. It's. You'll have to. I mean, whatever. Make your own opinions. We're moving on. Let's get this over with. Core rules manual changes. Arguably the best changes I think they've made in a while. I think they clarified almost all the rules text I've been having problems with, and we've been having problems with online.
I organized these all into actual rules changes, quality of life things they just kind of cleaned up, and then FAQs.
All right, I'll let you take it away, Goodman.
Yeah.
So rules changes. So they added the ability to relent to simple duels, which I think we already mentioned. Basically cleans up some older stuff and brings it into the modern Malifaux era. And then the next one is falling. So this one's fun because the rules text was clear, but also was impossible to play on the table. so no one did. And also, the way it was written was confusing, so some people just didn't understand what it said. So this is just better for everyone. And yeah, it's basically the interesting thing here is that it looks like they kind of just copied a lot of these cleanup things from stuff that the Vassal community
World
already
Vassal.
codified.
Did the work for them.
Which is great, which is honestly a really cool thing for them to do.
They could have done it sooner then, but that's fine.
But we're here and we're happy that it's here now. So yeah, falling now, if you are 50%, more than 50% off the table, you will fall, but they added all the clarification that you can't do any like tricks with it. You're just forced to either stop when a model would be just before 50%, or complete a movement which leaves you in a legal position that is fallen. So it's just a really nice, clean way of resolving that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to hurt a lot of people who like pushing people off cliffs, because it's now decently harder to do that because you have to get their whole base off of a cliff with that push movement.
Yes.
But, God, this clarifies so much, especially if you like playing on Vassal, because the whole 50% base thing
was abused.
Yeah, and falling was abused, and it was a lot. They're like, oh, my 50%'s not on, I just fall and moved forward a half an inch. It's like...
that was the one that bugged me, because I've had that on the table against me. It's like, well, I'm not supported, so I get my entire base out and fall, and I netted 2 inches of movement here. I'm like, that...
I will say,
that's the rule.
It never worked that way.
No, it never was supposed to work that way.
It was never supposed to work that way.
Yeah. But it was confusing. So
it was played against me, and I didn't have the energy to try to fight it because the rules were not clear.
Yeah.
Definitively clear.
Yeah.
So now definitively clear. Lovely changes. Awesome.
Yeah. Next one I have here is climbing. So this one, I think the biggest change here is that you're allowed to use a second walk action in conjunction with your first movement, which is really cool, because there were some awkward positions you could get into where your move 5 and there's a height 5 wall. You literally cannot climb up on top of it unless you started within 2 inches. So now you can start wherever, you just add it to the total distance you are moving, and there's no weird intervening things. And it's just nice quality of life.
Yeah, nice quality of life change. It's a nice, also climbing only, obviously, so no double walking through any other shenanigans. Just nice change.
That's the other thing, which is kind of an FAQ change or rules change depending on where you landed on it, but you cannot climb with non-walks. So that's actually fully in the rules now. So it's a nice clarification there. And then targeting restrictions. So this one is an interesting insight into what they initially meant non-leader to mean, which seems like it was more carved out for henchman-led crews, but they just forgot that you can hire masters when you wrote it. So now you can't obey masters with non-leader abilities.
Who would do such a thing?
Who would do something like that?
Who would do such a thing?
That was one where, it's like this, and I guess you haven't talked about the relenting to simple duels, and shockwave, that is all kind of bundled in. Where these were suggestions that were put forth in beta, and then it's just now we're oh shit, you were right. And this, the non-leader, it's it probably should be non-leader or master, right? And and again, this is something that they're not willing, because this isn't changing on the card. It's just the idea behind what non-leader means.
Yeah.
Well, and this is actually a fundamental errata. It's a rules change, but it's not reflected in the cards.
Yeah, they basically changed the rule to mean masters are always considered leaders.
Exactly.
Kind of, except for when they're referring to their own text.
Right. For exactly this, all masters are leaders, and all leaders are masters, except for in every other case in the game where they are distinctly different.
Yeah, they were weirdly building around henchman-led crews that.
Right. So it was needed, but they did it too late and in a way that's like kind of awkward.
But we're all happy that they clarified it now.
Yes.
And we appreciate.
And now you can't obey Hoffman to shoot shit.
Yeah, fucking Christ.
Even though they already changed Hoffman to not be able to do that anyways.
So this is just future-proofing for the next time they print Hoffman.
Yeah. The next Hoffman problem.
Yeah.
Which they've been doing more, and I appreciate. Friendly enemy control. I don't know if this even... Oh, sorry. Never mind.
It massively is important.
Friendly enemy control. They at least clarified it. I'm not sure if it's a real change, but it's not what I have written here, which is that if a model is ever resisting an opposed duel, the model is always controlled by its owner. So I think they already touched this before, but now it's in the rules.
I think they haven't, right? Because the only thing I know that this really...
Vassal talked about it, I think.
Yeah, it's been discussed, which is why it's showing up
here,
but you could disengage from Hinamatsu.
Yep.
Yeah, or you can't the auto execute thing where you can somehow chain it, like, which I'll give it credit to the people who like quote unquote discovered that. Really cool rules manipulation, and not even rules manipulation, just like
all rules manipulation.
Chaining. But it shouldn't.
Yeah. So pretty much as we went over the big changes, you can no longer obey a model to disengage from Hinamatsu, and then you can then relent on that model to Hinamatsu just beating the crap out of you. Now the person always gets to control the
well, you would like cheat yourself down, so you get a plus flip.
Right. Both sides of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you went over this, but I do want to mention they clarified Black Joker to specifically be 0 damage, no modification, no blast markers.
That was already in the rules, though.
Was the blast marker thing in the rules?
Text. Yep, all that text was there.
I don't understand it then. I know there was...
Yeah, I think so.
That's how everyone played it. I don't know how it was written. It's just how everyone played it.
That's how you assumed it, because, like, how do you generate damage if you can't generate damage, which is what the Black Joker does? So
yeah.
Who knows? If it changed, then it's what everyone wanted it to be anyway. So.
Yeah.
And the next one I have here is focused. You can use focused in simple duels now, so that's cool. It buffs some things.
Also, like a change that should have it makes total sense. You should be able to give yourself a plus flip because you have focus like that.
Yeah. It was kind of weird that it didn't work that way, and it was confusing.
Exactly.
So
but the important thing is on if it's a heal flip, you don't get the plus flip to the heal.
Yeah, only damage.
Yeah, it's only damage that or defensive triggers that cause damage that it rolls over.
Yep.
The strat marker thing, I think, is kind of relevant to point out. It won't come up too often anymore, but it's kind of important for when you play games in person, because technically now the ruling is, instead of moving terrain to better fit the board if your TOs didn't do it or aren't allowing you for some weird reason, then you now have 2 different solutions on dropping the strata marker. Either agree to a location that's different than what is, or don't have the strat marker, which is very interesting to me. You're like, oh, that strat marker goes on that building. They're like, well, we'll just drop it here slightly early release. And I'm like, no, I think that gives you an advantage. And they're like, how? And I'm like, I think it gives you an advantage. We're not having that marker anymore.
Well,
I guess.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting argument that might come up. I think most TOs are just going to be like, the house got moved.
No, fuck you. Yeah, that's the thing. It can be hand waved away because it's just you'll go to the TO will tell the person who's being a dick, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
You can't cap them at 7 points by manipulating the rules. But the rules allow them to do that. So all I need to say is, you can't drop it there. And then we're disagreeing. So the default solution is to not drop it, which
is interesting.
A high level of assholery, but
or just maybe you both agree on that, and it could just be interesting that you play with a game that's now capped differently.
Well, that goes back to Longton. We did this. Remember when back during what strategy is it with the 8-inch?
I don't remember the name either, but that was GG1, right?
Yeah, where we mapped it out that if you positioned it correctly, you could. Now you'd be capping your own self, probably at a point like
no, that point. It prevents you from dropping another strat marker, which
right,
would
which
then
means
your opponent
it has less options.
But you now are no longer allowed to do that with the second part, which I actually really like. That's a change that would do it. You cannot intentionally place your strat markers to not prevent a remaining marker from being dropped.
Yeah.
And I think they had this in a GG, but this is now moving it into the main rules document.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's more future-proofing, but it is interesting that with intentionally drop strat markers, you cannot do that anymore.
They also codified the summon rules to going through like something that was ruled in GG and now is
getting brought in.
Yeah. What else was there?
Quality of life things. I have line of sight. This is a cleanup. There was a weird implication of line of sight rules that if something was utterly under your base and not touching any of the edges, you could not draw line of sight to it, which is kind of, I think, how the rules did read, but no one played it that way and it was asinine, and it doesn't work that way anymore.
Oh, like a 40 mil on top of a scheme marker?
Yeah, that no one could see it even themselves. It was
interesting.
Bizarre. It didn't make any sense.
Also, they adjusted line of sight wording to be, I think, a little better for people who were honestly almost. I don't want to say maliciously because the guy was pretty nice who did it to me, but it's honestly like the weirdest way of ruling it, where it's like, oh, you only draw the line of sight from the edges of your base to the edges of your opponent base, and there are no in between ones. And I'm like, what in the world? No, so it's just a much more nicer cleaning up of it. You draw it from your base to their base, or obviously size 0 is also very nice.
Yep. So those are nice. Then math. There was a weird interaction with things at half, and now they just made an explicit exception that 4.5 is a health value that you can be above or below. So that's nice.
So Vendetta, the clarification from that is 7 wound Vendetta model, half their health was technically 4 for a while, whereas now you actually have to bring them to 3 health.
Yeah, you can't score by going to 5.
4, yeah.
Or yes, 4, yeah. Sorry, but yes.
Red Joker, I believe, was adjusted to be able to pick no suit. I think that comes out specifically for like weird gremlin models and a couple other things where it's just like they have a trigger on everything and have to declare it. So now you can actually like have a Red Joker and not declare a trigger if you really don't want one.
That's got to be what it is.
So there's a couple of interesting, or I mean, there still were a couple where they like. I think there were a couple of like opponent flips your deck and you flip the Red Joker and they're like, oh, what suit do I get? And now you can actively just say you don't get a suit because you're the one who gets to control your Red Joker when they flip it.
That makes sense.
So yeah, a nice little change there. What else you got, Goodman, for me? Oh, area between got clarified, which,
yes,
cool.
Area between. It was just undefined before, and there were like 3 different ways of interpreting it. I think this is what most people landed on as being a reasonable interpretation, but now it's the only one in that sense.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Next, I have terrain, hazardous terrain. The thing where they added it so that if your model space is touching terrain, either overlapping or in base contact, it is both in that terrain and within 0 inches of it. This goes along with the hazardous terrain changes made before, where being in base contact with terrain makes you suffer hazardous. Now, just in base is in, and there were some weird edge cases it just gets rid of. Mm-hmm. So that's cool.
Great change to the aura terrain as well. So now Jedza's where she belongs, and Grave Goo is now hilarious. You seriously have to debate picking Umbra against literally any Explorers models now, or even Reser models, because you're like, oh, hey, look, I have a Deva. And they're like, I have a Grave Goo next to your Deva. Take actions. I dare you.
Yeah. Right.
So that's funny.
Oh, I see.
Umbra is really the only one who truly suffers from that, but it's going to come up more on models that have Vent Steam, models that create it on a few other people, I believe. So, actually, I don't even know if Vent Steam impact your own models. Yeah, so it's going to be.
No, Vent Steam is only enemy models, technically. but
Correct.
continue.
But
Yeah.
anyway, it's fine.
What? It makes... Oh, right. I'm thinking of... Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, what else? What else we got, Goodman?
Hills got cleaned up, so they didn't. They were weird before. They didn't fit into any category, but now they just gave them blocking because you can't see through a hill. I think there was some thought that this could interact oddly with shadow, but I don't think that's the case. Because as long as your hill is more shallow than is high, there just isn't a shadow. So
because it's a hill, and that's how hills work.
Right. Yeah. So it's just a nice clarification that you can't see through hills. So,
does that mean you get cover from hills now?
Yeah.
Correct.
That's fun.
And they're full terrain pieces, so a big enough hill, you can extend Grave Goo out by the hill.
Related to shadow, though, there's no configuration of hill that you gain the cover because you're always too far away. I believe is how that ends up working out.
Oh, sure.
Is that if you just have a very steep hill, wouldn't you
Sure.
be able to
if you have very steep hills,
don't have steep hills.
Weird. I agree, but I don't think you should ever have those. So I'm just going to go with no. All right, I think that's everything from the Errata document, though. From FAQs. What's up?
I was gonna say I was scrolling through. We were talking about the whole like additional master leader thing. That's a line. I just saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they added it in here as well as in the
Yeah, I just didn't see that additional masters hired are treated as leaders for all effects, but no other effects.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So they pretty much just put it in like two separate spots.
Yeah. Redundancies to reinforce the redundant nature of it. It's good.
So moving on to FAQ, I have a whole section of rules erratas that got stuck in this document as well.
Yep.
There were a lot of them. One of them is just a repeat. Model C is controlling Nexus action. Same thing with Hinamatsu. The owner is controlling opposed to always. But then one of the cool ones is that if you are placing or dropping objects within range, you basically just drop it as a size 0 thing, which makes a lot of sense on the table because your markers are size 0. So you just treat them as size 0 for drawing a line of sight to them.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where that is on here, so I can show people. Number 10 on the actions. Yeah, that's a nice strong clarification.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things we have to mention is the shockwave one. So that's further back up.
Oh, sure. I think I have it down in the next section.
Okay.
But yeah. So they made it so I don't remember if this was in the rules already but this is more of a clarification of the exact order in which you resolve effects of shockwaves and pulses. So it's nice. I like how they have generated nested effects and a queue to the game that people kept insisting didn't have them.
Yes.
They exist now.
I actually adore that. So many people told me it's like, oh, it doesn't have a queue. I'm like, it's not. That's almost not possible. If you can't actually just resolve all of these at the exact same time. That doesn't work.
Time exists.
Yeah. And time exists in our world.
Yeah.
Or does it? Malifaux's a weird place.
Yeah.
It's just devil's advocate right there.
But yeah, and they're nested, which is kind of the only reasonable way for resolving that, I think, because otherwise it's incredibly confusing to try to figure out how to parse that. So
yeah, so it is nice to know that the demise happens, during the shockwave, which is fun.
Yeah, demise happens when it happens. Good to know.
Exactly. So the next one I have down here is the Clamble thing is just a repeat from the Errata.
Yep.
But Gunfighter is just always on, and you always have a melee, which is funny because the ability has a May written on it, and that just doesn't exist anymore according to the FAQ, because there's no case in which the May does anything, which is amusing. But makes more sense this way, and is much more consistent with expected behavior.
Yeah, it's become a little too annoying with how you can turn it off and on during. I mean, specifically as the FAQ brought up was for scheme scoring, and it was pretty obnoxious to be able to do that.
Undercover. This is just an errata, I think. The undercover, now you can just unbury your deployment zone. So that's cool. It's a nice quality of life change to anything with undercover.
Yeah, I did always like people's arguments for Gen, where it's just like, if I don't have minions, you just can't unbury it. And it's like, well, you're not wrong. that is a problem.
Yeah, I think the undercover reporter cared more about that. But
anyway.
Yeah, I think Gen didn't really matter. You were just willing to just not have it start buried, but the reporter definitely was a much more terrible model if it accidentally stayed buried.
Yeah. Filthy Spear, this is just an errata. I don't know why they decided to resolve it this way, but it works differently now. Lucky. Anyway, Lucky Emissary. This one is interesting because I think a lot of people played it the other way, and now it's switched to just remove ice pillars and don't take any damage for them. That's cool. And last one is Family. They just got a buff to being able to square Vendetta, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm not hyped about that one, but whatever.
Sorry. Specifically to read it, if a family model drops its Vendetta, target half wounds during its activation, and that model reveal Vendetta, and then use Opporel. And it only mentions the case of it being a simultaneous effect and choosing the order they resolve. What it seems to imply is that you can choose to resolve Opporel first, use that to drop them to half, and then reveal your Vendetta.
And count it for yourself. Oh, good.
Because you ended an activation, you did damage them, and now it is half. Yep.
So you can that seems nice.
Yeah, it's just a nice bit of flexibility for scoring schemes.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right, then I have changes. Oh, sorry. What was
I was just you might have been going here. I want to do a honorary call out to Longton because he directly caused an FAQ to happen.
Oh yeah.
With the Hamlin. You don't get 30 actions when you make a Rat King, Longton. Fuck you.
You know what? I'm not going to take the blame for that one.
I'm proud of you.
Specifically played that so that they would change it.
I know.
Because I think most of us agreed it shouldn't have worked, but Vassal decided they would. But the rules were iffy on it. Vassal decided that they think the rules allow it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I'm just like, you can't allow this. You absolutely cannot allow this to exist. And so I played a tournament as it because they forced me to. The more relevant one I'm going to talk about, because I actually hate this change, is Wing Plague. They FAQ'd that the Wing Plague, which I think is just clearly did work this way. Give it blight tokens every time it ends a move, or only during the push from the plague spreads. They ruled that it's only during the push.
Wait,
obvious that was how the card was intended to work.
I think I agree with you. I think I agreed with you. The intent was for it to work that way, but to be quite frank, the crew only works if it doesn't work that way. Specifically, Wing Plague only work if it doesn't work that way. And it was a nice accidental buff to Wing Plague that they didn't realize. But I feel like they could have just kept. I don't know why they removed it, to be honest. Because they already have a couple effects like that, where the sentence ends with a statement that doesn't care about the rest of the ability. It's just that sentence. And the fact that they're FAQing that actually brings into question a couple other abilities where they have sentences that seem to correlate to the ability, but in general can just be read outside of it.
Yeah.
And the current ruling is almost always to read it outside of that ability if it's a standalone sentence. And so it is kind of weird that they took the standalone sentence and said it directly applies to the ability.
Yeah. Well, and that's one that's like on like a large scale is weird because like we've seen those FAQs where like they break down the noun verb interaction and like all of that.
Yeah.
And well, actually, let's scroll up to one of those right now in 10 Thunders because I think this is the other thing to talk about that kind
how that works.
Yeah, because didn't they bring that in for 10 Thunders? Or no, it wasn't for 10 Thunders. What they actually brought up, there was another noun verb change. I don't remember what it was for.
Take the hit and vengeance is one that gets real into the weeds of how language works.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's already established as being an utter clusterfuck that target and targeted are simultaneously the same and different, or whatever.
I will stand on the hill that it was perfectly parsable exactly this way always. It was just a bit of a complicated bit of language differentiation.
Right, which is a problem.
Because when you do that, and then for an ability like Winged Plague, you're just like, language doesn't matter at this point, and you're kind of like, well, if you're basing, I'm just going to search take the hit.
It's 5 in Rezzers.
Oh, thank you, because they specifically bring it up for Urami. Okay,
Urami, yeah,
instead of their abilities.
But it's a problem. Like, it's a problem for just like general like ease of life, but also like a vast population of the people who play this game do not speak English natively.
Yeah.
So like we people who speak English who have grown up with like very complicated bullshit grammar might, and I'm going to put the might understand this.
Yeah.
The people who like didn't spend their entire life with the English language, it doesn't make any sense. And that's very defensible on their part. And then Weird's like, well, actually, because I'm still pissy about another. That's where this is coming from. Because another still doesn't make any fucking sense.
English just understand it, and how are you so incredibly stupid that you can't understand what Weird means when they say another? That's what they wrote in the rules text.
Yeah,
right.
They were kind of pissy that you needed to clarify it, as I recall.
Yeah, they were pissy, and it still leaves unresolved answers. Yeah. And I don't like grammar. It hurts my brain.
So yeah. Anyways, Winged Plague, sad hit. I really think that severely hampers Hamlin 1 and 2. But well.
There are just a bunch of things that I think just got basically copied straight from the World Series FAQ, and now they're in the actual FAQ. So
really,
move through those. So like Harnessed Chi, there's a clarification that you increase the duel total and it will change cheat order.
That's how everyone played it, though.
It's not how
so many people tell me.
Yeah,
the opposite of that.
Had so many arguments over Harnessed Chi, and honestly, I thought Vassal was going to rule differently, just because sometimes they get really pedantic about rules as written, and some people argue that was how it was written, and it's like I can
the
only
way it logically made sense was if you buff above the opponent, they have to cheat first. Like I always thought that was just like.
Well,
and I played against
Monk. Agrees with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like
that's I think everyone kind of agreed with you.
Right, because like it says before cheating. So why would it like not affect, I
don't even feel like going over why, because
it was basically what the definition of modify was, and when they had it written in the rules and when they didn't have it written in the rules. Because they're like, oh, you modify it here, but they don't use modify later, therefore does it, and it was really dumb. Yeah, it's a really dumb argument. It was a way to just try to be like, her. Yeah.
Yep. And we don't have to have it anymore. Perfect. All right, moving on to Fate deck. This one was, I think, kind of an errata, but now they just cleaned it up so that if you look at cards, you shuffle the deck if you need to look at more of them. I think any reasonable person just resolved it this way anyway.
Yeah.
But technically, I think there was a good argument that you aren't drawing them, you're just looking at them.
I think I have a couple recorded games where someone pulled that on me, but I agree. I think everyone I played in person definitely resolved it this way.
Yeah.
Oh, you need another card for some reason. You have no more cards. You don't get it. No, that.
It's like, oh, you only shuffle the deck if you draw or reveal a card, and you're not. You're or draw or flip the card. You're not. You're revealing them. It's like, okay, well. Or you're looking at them. It wasn't even revealed.
Right.
It's just like, okay.
Which, that's whatever. It's fine. Doesn't exist anymore. We can move on with our lives.
Yep.
This one's cool. They made it so that you can arc through things to move Carve Path Walkers. So just upgraded everyone that can arc through things.
I kind of appreciate this because I'm pretty sure this was rules is written, and some people just were like, I think specifically some people were just looking at Damien and were like, nah, this is just too good if we let him do that, therefore we're just not doing it.
Silent ones were the big one that people complained about.
Silent, yeah.
But now silent ones just get to interact at range 10, so that's cool.
Something like that.
It's fine.
It probably genuinely is fine. I didn't think
because don't they delete the ice pillar when they move it?
No, and you don't have to. You don't have to delete the ice pillar. You just put the ice pillar behind the mark you're trying to move. Anyway, people can.
Oh right, because they can do it from within an inch. Right.
Bloated stench. I don't know why this had to get clarified, but if it is nice that it is clarified. If a model doesn't exist anymore, they don't get to resolve their abilities.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Now, just in the rules, you don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, I was always a little surprised this was included, because, I mean, we always knew it worked that way for Vengeance, so why were people arguing about it for Bloated Stench?
Or, like, defensive triggers.
For Vengeance, like, defensive triggers, it wasn't even clear to me, because it wasn't clear in the rules anywhere that if you had a trigger that you already had declared whether or not you finished resolving it.
Yeah.
But, now it's clear, and that's nice.
I'm sad that I can't do bullshit with my guilty models for cursed objects anymore.
Yeah, I have that down in the section of rules clarifications that they just added for new GG and model releases to get ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But Rockhopper, they clarified that it does in fact work. It doesn't just not work.
Yeah, I do love the people who argued about that, because you're not wrong. The way it's written is just wrong. You're within 4 of a friendly model.
What's this?
So the way Rockhopper read was, when this model activates, if there are no friendly models within 4, push it 4 in any direction. And people were just like, well, but it sees itself, therefore it's within 4 or a 4 of a friendly model, because it doesn't say other friendly models.
Right.
So technically it would see itself and would never have this ability.
I will agree that, because there was something in like the rules about like you're always an LOS to yourself or when you're buried and shit. And they're very exact when they use other friendly models and things.
Yeah. No, it's just a misprint, and they clarified that it's just a misprint.
And they just didn't want Errata to change it.
I'll give them credit. Well, they fixed that up really fast compared to some of the other misprints.
Yeah, there's the face in the crowd was the other one they had to fix up in a similar way.
Honestly, I think they either like hired some new people, or some new people took over the rules changes, because they're on point now.
Yeah, they're real good.
All right, what else we got?
I'm enraged by the mage. I think this one was pretty clear, but it's nice that it's in the FAQ now, so I don't have to argue with anyone about it. That even though your push was generated by a trigger, the action generated by the push is not generated by a trigger.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think there were some people that tried arguing this.
Is that a nested action, though? So if you go back to the root...
Nope.
Sorry,
moving on. Goodman next.
Yeah, journalist. This one, it was genuinely confusing, and now we know that you can be both friendly and enemy at the same time. So you just get all the effects that would generate from either of the two for journalist interacts. So that's cool. Lucius Matheson dishonorable. This is in the wrong section. Anyway, that is clarified that you don't get multiple attacks. It's just one. So cool. I don't know that many people.
I don't know anyone who thought it read this way, but yes.
I don't know what this one is.
So essentially, there's a down the wrong pass action. You moved a model, and then a model engaged by it. Models by an elite or mimic model. If it ends engaged by it, they can take a call action against it. And the argument is the way it was worded left it a little ambiguous. If you could have every elite or mimic model it's engaged with attack it.
Oh.
So clarified. Cool. Whoa. I don't know if this was ever unclear, but now it's in the FAQ, so someone had a question about it. But yeah, you only get one misery at a time.
Because you only can get affected by one aura at a time.
Yeah, I feel like this one wasn't even needed, but it's here, so that's cool. And then we just have cleanup stuff like McMorning and Sanitary, you don't get to copy zombies. They're a corpse marker. They're killed by their ability. This one I don't think was even unclear either, but I don't know, some people.
I don't think it was unclear either. I think everyone played it correctly. There were just a few people who were like, "Hey, if you want to really squint your eyes and turn your head a little bit, technically, maybe you could just copy mindless zombies infinitely, and then have an infinite corpse marker and infinite mindless zombies you can never kill ever."
Yeah, that seems fair.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, that was intended.
They're bad models. They don't do anything. So what's the harm?"
Yeah, so we fixed that. And then there's the healing related stuff. They just added our actual healing timing chart, and now we have some correlates of that are getting added to the FAQ. So that's nice. Healing is more complicated than it ever needed to be, and now we know how to resolve it. So that's nice.
Yeah, so a nice little shout out to Gwil as well for the healing, because has no health. It can be healed, just doesn't gain any health, and therefore is not treated as healing.
As healing, yeah.
Which there you go.
Then we have some real complicated stuff, because fucking Damien. If a enemy model controls a witness model and Damien Aspirin screws a controlling player able to utilize witness, the in-between to have the obeyed model discard cards from Damien player's configuration. I'm going to read it. Don't care. But now, if you ever need to do that, you can look at this and read it then.
So pretty much, I'm just gonna take I'll give the Cliff Notes version of this because everyone looks at me for Damien. Pretty much, Damien 1, only one it really impacts. When you obey a Damien 1 model, you can cheat from their configuration, your opponent's configuration, and that's really great. It's actually a decent hit to Damien for people who argued you couldn't do this, but you don't get the suits from their configuration, because now that refers to, because your text on that one isn't on Damien himself, which is where the text is for that. The your text is on the model itself, therefore that refers to that model's configuration, or that owner of that model, or owner of the effect of the model's configuration, which is now you. So it's not gaining any suits unless you yourself have a config. So funnily enough, if you're in a Damien versus Damien, or you're playing lore and you obey a Damien model, if your config has a suit, now that model will have a suit.
Good.
This pretty much doesn't impact Damien 2 at all. Except for, obviously, when they obey a Damien 2 model, they no longer got suits if they would have gotten suits if people argued it that way, or their TO ruled it that way. Which they probably never should have, but I definitely played a couple TOs that ruled it that way.
Yeah. And I think most of the rest of the stuff on here is like some rules clarification / updates for new stuff. So like explosive turn of events. Bygone is on here. Mara theme, Dr. Watson. So
I think another one worth pointing out is Ledger de Mons thing. The showmanship was canceled out because people were, debating about that, which was pretty funny.
I don't think there was any other way of playing that, though, because
I don't think so either.
It was like the only way to play it, but the rules didn't have resolution for it.
It's like people wanted to just be robots, and they were just like, "Oh, this doesn't compile, therefore we're broken now." And it's like, "You're people, just be smart."
What is it? Yeah. Well, I thought they talked about this with
It's on Pride's version of this ability, but Pride actually has it written on the card.
Yeah, right. Is that what it is? Or no, that was part of Pride's errata originally.
Oh, wasn't that?
Let me.
Yeah, I guess an important thing while you figure that out is Dr. Watson's whole fast thing from the assist action. You can pretty much never abuse that. It's just how they ruled it. You can't keep fast, you can't gain fast, even if you use it outside of his activation. You're not getting a fast Watson in the future. You better use assist during your activation if you want the free AP you would get from fast.
Yeah, that was in the original errata. 20, so that would have been March 2020. Okay. Pride solo gained the following text: during an opposed duel, if both models benefit from this effect, both effects are ignored.
It's also on the Explorer's upgrade that has a similar effect, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
And
so
I
they
think
just
they're
didn't
also
have it on
specialized-
showmanship, and therefore
Yeah,
people were
cancel.
just like, "Oh, our brains stopped working, and we can't intuitively figure this out."
It's in the FAQ now.
Yeah,
So
Makes
well,
sense.
answered.
it literally, to me though, that FAQ really read to me as like, "Oh, people were literally trying to
I
be
guess.
computers compiling error, and therefore the game just ceases to exist because you created like an error." And I whatever.
Wait, where
I
is
don't know.
this?
Now we know.
Actually, wait. I have an idea.
Lamplighters.
One of the interesting things is Maranthine. You can blast off of it, which is fun.
Oh yeah.
Some people were.
Everything is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's necessary because it's incredibly confusing and there's no precedent for it. So
Where was
now we have some nice
the
reference there.
So my question would be, how is showmanship different from the Hangs Forever Doomed? Because Forever Doomed applies, and then it's the non-active player who gets to resolve the benefit, if I'm reading this correct.
What? It's just enemy gets to treat Red Joker.
So, like, if two hanged are against each other, how does Forever Doomed get resolved? So which is like similar to like showmanship, right? Where you cheat second or whatever.
Yeah.
And this, they actually resolve, like they explain the active player resolves Forever Doomed first, then the other player resolves there. In such a case, the active player flips or cheats either Joker, it would be treated as the black, and if the defender would cheat, it would be treated as the red. So that feels kind of like.
Yeah, the only difference in showmanship is the fact that no matter what, how you want to read the abilities for the timing of it, you're going to go back to the same way, attacker, defender, and cheating like normal then.
Yes.
Yeah, because only one person can cheat. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because like the logic, like the limitation is the actual mechanics of it. But the logic would say the way they did the hanged is how it would be applied.
Yeah, it just, there's no timing resolution of this particular version.
Clarification on Secret that I thought we all knew, but if it model is full health, it doesn't trigger Chronicle abilities.
Yeah,
I thought they had done that already.
They did it with Nexus, passing it off. So
well, I thought that was actually in the last errata, and they just
did they just didn't remove the asterisks from the old errata?
They did that with the Tormented, got flagged as new again, and it wasn't this time. I'm pretty sure that's because
is the Lamplighter was the Lamplighter ruling old
I don't remember.
I can't remember either.
It's just like a clarification.
Yeah, because you're right. The Cadmus, the We Are Legion thing is there, and I'm pretty sure that got clarified last time.
That was the whole thing last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
they definitely didn't do 2 years without addressing that.
Yeah, I won't lie. A couple of it's me remembering if I read that in an errata change or if I read that in Vassal's FAQ.
Right, yeah.
Which FAQ did I read this in? Bygone. Kind of relevant. Obey, you get
sense.
the owner's ideal upgrade.
Which makes sense that you would.
I don't know how I would have thought that it worked, but now I know.
Especially because doesn't that go opposite of pretty much what they said with the Damien one?
I don't know. I don't care. It's in the FAQ now.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Well, because the Damien one, I think the Bygone one specifically calls out owner, and the Damien one, the model specifically calls it out, or the upgrade calls it out. But yeah, whatever. It's in the FAQ. It's ruled that way.
The TO has to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If an enemy models within 3 of multiple selected marker, would you take them to duel multiple times? No. So just a nice little clarification for what Hull is his name?
Hull, indeed.
Yeah, which we pretty much knew it worked that way, but I guess technically pulses were from models, not from markers, so I guess that kind of makes sense. Because you're affected from an aura of one model, so I guess that makes sense of why you would be confused about that.
Yeah.
All right, anything else that we've missed?
No, I hope not.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
yeah, I feel like we got through that pretty quick. So good
2.5 hours.
Hey, I was. You guys argued with me over the models for longer than I thought you would. To be honest,
Can't just let you like act like it's your podcast and just run it. Gotta challenge you.
Not even for that reason. I welcome the challenge. I thoroughly
no,
enjoy it.
I'm trying to keep
I was just surprised because both of them
in court.
Yeah, both of them told me before we started recording. It's like, because I wanted other people to record with, bounce ideas off. I especially wanted someone who's better with rules than me. So I wanted, especially either Goodman or Pope DARPA, because I don't read the original core rulebook. I read it once or twice and look up relevant information when I need it. But they both told me like, yeah, I don't really know what I would add, especially to the model changes. I don't really know what I would add, and well, there you go. They added a lot. I think it was a good argument. Kirai is dead to me. She's probably. I'm going to be like proven wrong. I think Kirai is the only one that I've talked about that I think legitimately can prove me wrong. I'm pretty confident Nexus just won't really see play because I think, especially Explorers and even Guild, even if they're still technically like playable, there are just so much better options they're going to be having in their factions that I don't think it really matters. Like, kind of like the Hoff 2 argument is like, Hoff 2, honestly, the only reason I'm sad to see Hoff 2 go is because he was one of the better masters to beat Damien with, and now I don't really have a counter to Damien anymore, and that's actually kind of bad.
Who needs a counter to Damien? He is not that good.
So now I'm probably going to have to actually play the Damien matchup. Although I think Hoff 1 is actually going to be a pretty good counter to Damien. You just get ready, pass token up, and then just go somebody with a Peacekeeper. But yeah, I think specifically like kids, you're just not going to play them anymore. The faction has so much better models to play. And Kirai, though, I'm not too hyped about Rezzers at the moment. I mean, they're fine. Yan Lo getting side nerfed maybe isn't too big of a deal for them.
They get Casker, though. It's fine.
Do you think Caster's good, though? I
don't know. I think he has potential, but
I think, yeah. Caster 1 in particular with the pulse pings might literally just be broken, but it could also just be trash. And I'm not sure which one it is yet until I play it out a few games.
I'm intrigued by the title's Blasty Blast thing. I think that has legs.
I thought Big Morning 2 also was still playable, or did the it was the damage reduction that got nerfed that put him
the poison.
It was handing out upgrades that got nerfed that I think hurt Big Morning the most. Not being able to have multiple upgrades on one model really hurt him.
Yeah, that's the change. I forgot.
You still got Daw though. Rezzers is fine.
Yeah, I look, Rezzers isn't bad. I'm talking purely from like a hyper competitive format.
Yeah,
which I think I think that's actually, I'm a little sad we're leaving the current GG3 because I actually think it's pretty competitive. The problem is with like Toll and Bygone and Damien, you just have, I think, this trinity of just like probably broken, and maybe Caster's there. I'm not actually sure. Ping damage is broken. Pulse ping damage is broken.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yannick, pulse ping damage is real good.
Yeah, I hate Yannick so much
all the time.
See, that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever actually used democratic elections to deal damage. I always use it.
You're just wild.
It's like every game.
Can I finish?
So broken.
Can I finish? I primarily use it for the let's feed Eric the hazardous. Like no one generally comes near enough to her that it works, and that I'd rather shoot with the stun.
I just stick her in there.
Oh.
Yeah, you just run her in. She's great when you just run in with her, honestly.
Well, she dies.
She's a henchman with hard to kill. Like,
that doesn't matter worth a damn. She
way more dies to kill than she should, and then she's just so good.
What are you talking about? Nekoma one-shots her. Come on.
Yeah.
She literally did. I experienced that because Nekoma ran in, triple neg severe, and then blooded on her, and I couldn't do anything.
You know who helps with that is Marlena, who is a model that I've hired with her a few times now. It's fun.
Yeah, because her and Levy is just stupidly good.
Yep.
Well, this was a Von Shield list, but yeah.
I really wish Marlena was changed. It's literally the only thing I'm kind of sad about. That being said, though,
Explorers has so many things that have good defenses, and then it's just, I have Black Blood and Barbaros. I have Yannick that just hurts your things. I just don't have to win duels to kill your stuff. Yeah.
Anyway. I think, though, as much as I hate it, Outcast will fall a little bit to what I think is going to be the terrors of Bygone, Arcanist with past tokens, and then Guild. Yeah, I think those 3 factions, and don't get me wrong, Arcanist can run Bygone, so 4 factions are going to be powerhouses. But we'll get to that when the cards get added and we talk about the cards. We're not going to be doing a tier list with them. We are going to be doing a more classical trading card game, 1 to 5 stars, I believe, for the cards. So it should probably go faster, and, it'll be able to hit all the cards, because I don't know how the hell you would tier list, masters, minions, and all that shit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, separately.
Look forward to that coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever in the world they decide to give these. Hopefully this Wednesday.
At some point between now and March.
Yeah. If anyone, now that we're winding down, I do see we have some viewers. If anyone in the chat wants to ask any questions or anything, feel free to. But yeah, I really hope they release them on Wednesday. I'm really excited to play Bygone, and
my guess was like January 1st to give like a solid month for people to buy the book, but I don't know.
I think it's just going to be Wednesday. I think they didn't want to release it the same week Errata release, and therefore they are going to wait 1 more week and then just do it the next Wednesday. But you might be right. It might actually just be a holiday thing. So they just don't want it for the holidays. I wish they would, because I want to. That's when I'm going to be able to play the most games.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. It would make sense, because like a lot of people are going to be off for like a long weekend or something, and potentially could get time to like snag a game. And
man, I am worried about how much the game is going to be alpha strikes, though, especially in GG3. Unless we change GGs, it's going to be so many good alpha strikeable, factions.
Cacklefo.
Cacklefo, super fun. 10 out of 10. We'll do it again.
Yep. It's definitely my preferred format at this point.
Really?
It was fun.
That's how I like playing the game anyway. So
I really enjoyed it. I especially liked that they pulled from like the schemes and strats from everywhere. So like that made everything interesting. So then like there were some models like I would not bring now, I would do later, and blah blah blah. Like I enjoyed that. I liked that.
Interesting. I didn't think I liked it too much, but I didn't get to play in it because I had to go lose in the top 16. So I didn't really get to experience Cacklefo. My biggest problem with it is I don't think it is more balanced than what GG3 currently is. I do think that it probably has less negative play experience, though.
That's fair.
And that's for, for more casual play. I think on hyper competitive side, I don't actually care about the current negative play experience we have. Because most of it I don't think is actually hyper competitive. Therefore, if you're really competing to just win a game, then it's fine. Except for, Tara and Lady J, which they were just not fun to play against because you didn't get to play the game they did.
Yeah, that's something I don't like playing Tara very much, just because when she's good, she feels like the other player has no relevant decisions, and then you just win.
I think current Tara too.
I'm in Tara 1. I haven't even played Tara 2.
Yeah, I think current Tara 2 has a lot of interesting play around your opponent instead of, just being like, I do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially with how cool like you can play with the rewind markers currently. So I'm never going to Outcast. I think I'm gonna probably stick to Arcanist / playing some Explorers again, because I really do think Bygone looks and plays very coolly. And I think Arcanists are just going to be broken.
As it should be.
Yeah. Hey, man, they really shouldn't have give Arcanist pass tokens. I don't get it. Yeah, and focus.
The two things
It's
the
like
faction didn't have.
Yeah.
well, they did. You just hired the mobile toolkit. You can get focus.
Yeah, but now you don't need to.
Was that the
Well,
case?
you still hire the mobile toolkit.
Was that construct only?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were playing masters that weren't Hoffman?
Sure.
I mean,
and technically Envy existed, so you're not wrong.
Not joking, though. Karis is the best master in the game. Right? Right?
Because of the burn bomb.
And double focus. Yeah, her attack is nasty as fuck.
Yeah.
So you give her double focus, pass tokens, so you're not putting her at risk. Launch her up the board with her, multiple movement effects. Like, she goes in, rampages over your whole crew because it's built in, with her, double focus and her mod 4 blasting, severe 5 blasting 4, and you're like,
brutal.
And whoever you end your turn next to takes 5 damage.
That was kept at 3 at some point. Is it still 5?
It's 5.
It's kept at 5, yeah.
Okay. So you have to get her to burning, what is that, 12? It's 1, 4, 7, 10, 13. You have to get her to 13. So, which is not hard to do, especially because you want to know what the problem with getting her to 13 and why that's also easy? Because the models that get pass tokens do it.
Oh,
they can hand over. I do almost need a rules question on this, so I'll ask you, Goodman. When they get burning and they go to burning 4, I can give their condition to another model. Do I give them 1 burning or burning 4?
I'd have to read the actual ability. But I'm gonna lean towards 4.
You match it.
Yeah.
Where can I find this guy? I'm just going to take some time at the end here to go look for this spoiled card, even though I can never find spoilers again. Here. This guy has the ability, right? Once per turn, at this model would gain a non-fast condition. It may have another model within 2 gain that condition at the same value, if any. Is it talking about the value of the gain value or the value it has?
The gain value. So if you're getting burning +1, they would get burning +1.
Okay, so then probably not that great because you're going to be using them to get focus, and therefore you're not going to get the burning. So yeah, you're going to rely on the other areas to get burning. But, they give out focus really easily, right? I think because he also does it without using his ability, right?
You just concentrate and they gain the focus, right?
Right, but I would also want to use them to also get burning, but that's probably not feasible. But then again, I don't.
It's once per activation, right?
Once per turn. They were a little more intelligent on that one.
Then why would you ever just not give focus with them? That seems real good.
Yeah.
The only reason you would ever not give focus is because you're already at focus 2. Therefore, why do you
lock them into a pyre? Yeah. That's the reason.
Although I think it's probably not hard to get to focus 13 still. Then she gets a lot of it just by her charging through your models and being placed around. I remember I used to easily get her to like 20 something. So if I obviously have to use the 13 soul stones in order to hire the 2 models, the minion and the henchman. Or is it only 12? I think it's 8 and 4. Yeah,
you're always hiring Elijah for the card draw for your go-in, right? And then
Elijah
branded or 2.
Carlos.
Carlos.
Fire branded. That's the crew.
Yeah, there you go.
And you're gonna just move some pyre markers around underneath Karis and the crew.
You're gonna hand the marker though? I guess Carlos is.
Carlos is why you bring Carlos. He's the only one who guarantee makes it with a soulstone. You can quasi rely on the enforcer, who you probably also take, just because he's movement shenanigans. But
Shadow stones at that point.
Are you?
No, it actually count.
I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
Math is hard. But gentlemen, I'm hungry, so I'm going to
probably
sign
do.
off here because it is
Yeah.
late and I haven't eaten and I'm hungry. Have a good night,
You
and
too.